Just a little small. I don't know it.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the August 8th, 2022 meeting of the Town of Rochester Planning Board to order. Rick, if you could take us through the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Chair Charles,
Present.
Mr. Jones,
Present.
Mr. Pinsky,
Here.
Mr. Jarvis,
Here.
Mr. Grasso, Ms. Lindstrom,
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
And then we have Ms. Maloney is absent. We have the attorney for the town, Mary Lou Christiana, present. We have Liz Axelson from CBL present. And then myself, secretary for the planning board, Nicole.
Great. So the first item on the agenda is Thomas McCarthy, East Highway. So Mr. McCarthy, if you're here, we also have a public hearing, but we're going to review CPL's letter on the application before we reopen the public hearing. So I know, I'm sorry, we have some summary, Liz, of some of the items you found that
Sure.
Nicole's going to bring up. So
No,
if we could just hold on, if we could just walk through these items and understand where they stand and what needs to be done. So the first item related to okay,
I'm still here.
whenever you're ready.
I have something on page 3.
Great. Related to item number 3 in the letter. Which was in 8.5. Items 3B above has been, I'm sorry. 3B was addressed with the plan notation on July 22nd. And it's recommended that we provide waivers for 3A and 3C. 3A is a requirement for a full environmental assessment for 125.15, and 3C is the requirement to show and label outstanding views as per 125.14. So any discussion by the board on
No, I'm fine with that. Is it appropriate to make a motion now for the waiver? I'll make a motion to provide a waiver, provide a waiver from the requirements of the subdivision section 125.15B and 125.14B.
I second.
Okay. Any discussion on it? No? Okay. We can take a voice vote on it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The next item was on number 6. Was revised label on the proposed driveway on lot 2 to read proposed 12-foot wide shale or gravel driveway and clearly delineate the shared portion of the driveway for lots 2 and 4. Add a call out pointing to the shared portion of the driveway. A call out note reading common driveway area. So we're looking for a map notation on that. We have, was that provided? Liz, you didn't see that?
Oh, no, this is, I had just done this update on August.
So you need to,
August 5th, so I expected that would come. That's my guess.
Just came to us today. Okay, so Chair, I do have one comment on the on consultant's comment. I agree that we need to delineate the shared portion of that shared driveway, but I don't think in the past, to refresh my memory, that we've asked for, even for something like this, that anything be paid, you know. Cusack, for example, we didn't ask for paving there, and the
This is
conditions were
just
far
for
more
the shared.
rigorous there. We suggested to have it paved. So I think as long as it's brought up to standard, non-paved standard, shale, bond pack, whatever, that'd be good enough, but that's just my opinion.
I'd say, when you look how short it is, at least we should do what we did for Cusack and have
The first 10 or 12
exactly,
feet.
because you have that prop, exactly, have just the entry with the proper thing with curtains and.
And what was the name?
Apron.
Thank you.
Do you remember what the apron distance was? Was it 12 feet?
It's gotta
I think
be
it was 15.
15, because you've got Queens Highway there and you've got the Lucky going in and out, if you start getting gravel, everybody comes out of there like that's out of you know what? And all we need is just like gravel on top of people on top of ice, so that could be quite dangerous, I
Yeah,
think.
I'm good
Just
with
the
that.
apron,
Yeah, an apron.
David, anybody else?
How
15 foot apron.
10? What?
15.
15,
Yeah, this is it. So,
And how many
Yeah.
driveways would that cover?
it's just a two.
And which lot numbers? 2 and 4?
2 and 4.
15-foot apron. Lots of-
And the rest should be, so the standard that we usually do, 12 feet shale. Item 2, item whatever.
6.
Chairman, may I speak?
Sure.
So, there's an area, that comes in and there's an easement. And there's a very specific shared portion, and I've asked that that be delineated, because, so that it's more clear, what is the shared area? You've got one part, you come in off of Queens Highway, and I'm gonna say that maybe the length, I was thinking the part that is actually shared, in other words, so you're coming in, well, it looks like you're coming in 142 feet, but you might not need to go that far. And then you have, a driveway going off to lot 4. So the concept was to have the common area included. And then once the driveway starts in the common area, then the driveway. So that was the concept. More like 100 feet.
Well,
I know.
I think the marking.
I know you don't.
The marking should be from Queens Highway to where the driveway for lot 4 comes in. That should be clearly delineated on the map as being shared. But I'm still,
We wanna come in more. We wanna come in 50 feet from Blacktop, is what we're saying?
well, that's what, I'm okay with 15 feet, because that's what we've done in the past. And it's not, it's flat.
So can we just note for 15 on there? If I go
You'd
all
have
the
to
way
put,
the
if the
house,
rest of the board,
otherwise I can
you just put a
go over
note
my
there.
budget, So I'm okay with it.
If the rest of the board agrees, if the rest of the board wants the entire thing to be paved up to where 4 comes in.
I think 15.
I think 15 is the standard, which we should stick with, but if he wants to go more.
Now, what is 15?
I agree, I would go more too, right?
Approve the 15, and if I can go all the way to the house, I'm gonna go all the way to the house.
What's the front yard setback?
You're gonna pave over which house?
If he has the budget.
Okay.
Once I get the house
That's on
on
you,
whatever's
huh?
left.
So we have the 15, we put that in. So let's stick with that. And then as a minimum, right? Noted as a minimum, right?
You want to know what the setback?
Yeah.
So minimum 15. Right? And then just make the map notation to delineate the shared portion of the shared driveway.
So that's just text, gotta change that.
Yeah, that's just text, right? Okay. Moving along, we have, so Liz, you asked in 6, C to provide profiles for lots 2 and 4.
Yes, I had asked for that before, in July, and they didn't show up, so it's due to that.
That profile.
I'm driveway. It shows,
We've asked for
what's
those.
the reading of the driveway.
We've asked for those.
Okay, so it's a profile related to what? Grading. For the driveways?
Where do you see a driveway?
Well, I don't have a profile, so after, when you do your application, you're gonna specify that in one place. Right? That's how it's going to go.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Usually what it is it shows the gradient of the profile in graphic form.
Okay, and those are the lines of the grade that they have on there that will go uphill from lot 2.
It's up to the board. I'll leave it.
Well, we've asked for it in the past, it was asked before, if I'm not mistaken, honeycomb provider. If we want to go to the honeycomb map, we can show what a
It's
profile.
gonna be shown in a percentage form. If I remember.
It's a side view of the driveway. If the driveway's flat, it's a line across the paper. If the driveway's not, it shows the different grades and it shows the distance from the ground level to the top of the.
Kind of like a graph.
Yeah, exactly.
Those lines right here on lot 4 are considered.
So this would be.
Those are the topo lines. Looking for is
No, I'm not
the-
looking at
That's your total. So what we're saying, and I'll just show you, because I didn't understand. You'd be looking on the side of the road.
You have
It's gonna look like a line graph, right?
Yeah.
So we start at an end point.
I didn't print out the entire honeycomb.
Just an elevation.
And when it, for the Zoom meeting, can you bring this up to?
Like the driveway where you're at, and where something like that. Line graph, table graph.
So when we were on our Zoom meeting, did we bring this up?
I wasn't on the one that you were on. There was 2 Zoom meetings.
I don't believe that one came up.
No,
The last meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
The
and
one
there was
on,
no real response. You know, you would get a response and then Margaret usually writes.
Yeah, I just know that they were both on that Zoom meeting with your engineer. So I was just trying.
But this was an old comment. There was no question about it. So
All right, so we wanted.
It didn't come up in that 720.
Gotcha.
I think we focused more
What
on the
is
commercial.
that's really nothing that's gonna hold it back.
No.
No.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay.
No, Jeff, we'll send that to him.
The next item we talked about, again, was a repeat of the shale or gravel driveway. E. I is a waiver, I'm sorry, it's L, B1L.
It's had to do with the aerial photography that we saw.
Correct. So that's to grant a waiver for the aerial photography. Don't know how the board does it. We needed it.
I can make a motion. to
At this
grant
point,
waiver.
I'm okay.
Okay, do we have a second? I'm sorry. Any discussion? No? Voice vote? All in favor? Aaron made the motion.
If it was, just,
Unanimous approval.
topographically difficult, et cetera, maybe, but this is.
Yeah.
All right. Moving right along. A waiver of I, which is a soils map. Provide soils map noting hydrant for prime important agricultural soils, include USDA, NRCS soils report if available.
Which number are you on?
I am on,
We've asked for that in the past.
And the reason I suggested that, actually that recommendation to do that is coming from me because I was looking for a soils map months ago, didn't get it, but we have a note now that there are no rock outcrops on the site. We know a little bit more about the soil from some archaeological work that was done, and we have more information about topography and grading. And we know where the wetlands are. So those are the things I look for in the web soil survey. So we didn't get it, but I feel like we have information.
So you're recommending that we waive it?
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we waive number 5, the requirement to provide a soil survey map based on the recommendation of our.
Any discussion? All right,
There is one
All
more.
in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
We are on C, grading and stormwater review. This is item 4. Provide locations and construction details for concrete washouts and soil stockpiles for each of the 3 residential lots. Part that was partially addressed, please note typical note to require concrete washouts for each residential lot throughout construction. So is this just providing a map note
Yep.
for that?
So there is one more we missed.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead. Let's go back.
So I'm on page 8 of 13, item 5C, and I think this could possibly be just answered. The comment is existing / proposed other agency permits and applications. And that had been noted as this comment needs to be addressed. So I'm guessing we were at the point where there were 3 residential lots on a driveway, Queens Highway, and you have the septic. I think that's it. Okay. Then I'm just going to say that on.
So can I pose a question here? Did we, at one point, Mary Lou had mentioned because the front lot number 1 was going to be now a commercial lot, and at one point it had been a residential lot, that they would have to go back to the DOT to approve, not approve, et cetera. I didn't see anything in the pack here of the DOT saying, yeah, you can do a driveway. Or do you not have to do that, and it just is in all this, if you do the commercial one, you do it. All the stuff that you said in here, that you just have to have all of the approvals that are needed.
Have you gotten anything from them yet?
What's that?
You went back to DOT about the
Well,
commercial.
DOT told them it was gonna be changed to, all commercial land, that whoever does the work on there, they'll have to reapply for complete thing, they don't do that.
There is a map note.
That's what I thought. I didn't know if that was sufficient.
That was it.
It was a question if you could address it with the map note saying, hey, if anybody buys this.
Yes,
That seems good
because they're
enough.
gonna have to come back to us for
Right.
site, for special use.
I was just asking for the,
Yeah.
that point.
Chair, I have one comment on the last topic of conversation, the soils. I knew I saw it somewhere, but in the SWIP where it says pre-development conditions, it lists all of the soils right here for us.
All right.
So
Yeah,
I know we have a
thought
waiver for a soils map, but it is in our SWIP.
I thought you didn't have to provide that. in the last.
No, they needed a drainage plan. But it's in the SWIP. I knew I was.
Somebody else might not. So we're good. Mark, you said we're good?
Yes.
All right. 5, and this was consider using rain gardens or an underground infiltrators to treat runoff from the roof leaders on the residential houses. This comment remains to be addressed. So, what are we looking for on this?
Well, I take this as a recommendation. It's not a requirement of our code that I know of, so it's a recommendation that the applicant says, nah. They'll either say, nah. What does the applicant say, yes or no? No. Okay, so I think that's, we have no way of forcing that.
Right, we don't have that.
We don't have anything.
Well, we have,
We'd like you to consider it, though. It's a very good idea.
we
To
could
avoid-
write it into the decision also,
Keep it
being
grounded.
recommended. I mean, I'd like to write it in.
Our
Yeah,
engineer,
I think we should-
recommended
Yeah.
it to the board.
So we'll write that into the
Because
resolution.
exactly, within this, the part we're in right now is a little bit of which came first, the chicken or the egg to me with. It is a lot of land disturbance and you have the, blocks, et cetera, going through where it says, well, if you do, you have to have a full SWIP because of the amount of land disturbance that is there. But then you have to do the residential, but if the person comes and does the commercial, then you have to do it. But then how do they really know they're gonna have to do it if it wasn't done before? See my point here, it's a little chicken before the egg. Should it all be done now? Or will the person really do it? Or will the board or the next board remember? will have you written very clearly in the decision that because of the total land disturbance at this point, sort of like re-subdividing a subdivision, they had be very clear the person who buys lot one for commercial, that for the whole property has to be done now. Because they could have runoff into people's houses and stuff, or just for their,
I think, with the note on this lot and the subdivision being filed, that whatever stormwater runoff needs to be done for these lots to be developed, to be done, and result of this plan. When they come back for site plan, they're gonna have to take a hard look at how much impervious and grading, and how much stormwater runoff, and how it should be treated. Then, so
so my point is, how do we really assure that?
Well, when do we put in the map house? The notation that at the point in time, like, we do something else, that lot one is developed, that attention will have to be paid to stormwater runoff, yada, yada, yada. Because if anything, if you look at the topos, the stormwater runoff is gonna come from the residential down towards 209, it's not gonna go the other way. In fact, if they have to provide some sort of retention pond on lot one, I don't know where the heck that's gonna drain to.
Can lot one only be developed in commercial?
Well, that's what you're asking,
I agree that,
that's what you're asking.
I know you're asking for commercial, I'm asking. Can
yeah,
it
you
also
can
be,
have a house
so-
anywhere.
if it's developed residential, right? Does this requirement disappear? Because it,
Well, the land disturbance.
well, it's not a requirement
No, the land
Then
is,
they're gonna have to make a change if they develop it residentially,
as well.
because they can't use a driveway from 209 to the residence, which is why they've decided to use that for commercial purposes.
That's
and early in the process, the board asked for two different concept plans while in discussion.
Because there's an alternate
Push
way
it
somewhere else.
to
to
access
get
the
in,
property.
you always have to go by the alternate.
The road less traveled.
Right.
So that was, but even, so if you had I don't know, and somebody wanted to put a very large house there, you're in the same disturbance problem for all of this, it doesn't matter if residential or commercial.
Okay.
It's land disturbance. So that's sort of the issue here, to make sure that when the next person comes for the lot one, that it's very clear to that person and to the board that this needs a full flip, not just a soil, sort of sediment control study.
Well, I thought there was a requirement of how much is disturbed
This
for
disturbs
a
it.
full slip, so this is gonna be over and under.
That's what you said, and yeah, it is.
Okay,
So just somehow needs to be written up, stamped all over, put in every one of the lots, so we don't overlook it, or the next board or whatever doesn't overlook it.
so I
And the
think a note-
person who
So
wants to
a
develop
note
it.
on the map that it requires, based upon review, requires a full slip that we're not asking for
How
now.
about if we put a note that says at the time that lot, is that lot one?
Yeah, lot one.
One is developed, the split for the subdivision will need to be amended accordingly. How's that?
That was great.
And that way it's gonna take into effect what's there and what's added, rather than starting from scratch.
Yeah, exactly, because my sort of, I mean, I'll leave it after this, but my thought is, like you said, it flows down.
Yeah.
So let's say somebody puts their nice retail store there, and they end up, that you have to go back into the development also, because there's all this water going into the retail store, that person now sort of liable for doing all this stuff. Maybe there's no runoff whatsoever, it's zero runoff, because the houses have runoff heading for 209, and you end up with lot one having big runoff problems.
And if I can just go back for a moment, originally when engineering people looked at this whole subdivision, they recommended that there be a drainage easement going
Exactly.
over, because that is a lot of runoff going into the road. The way drainage systems can handle it's going to be a fair bit of impervious. It can be 2/3 of a lot of it to be impervious. So the concept was to have it somehow, there be an easement looking ahead as part of the subdivision to head, I guess, around this way and down toward where there was access to
I'm
water.
I'm
So that
no
was the
engineer, but
concept.
even if we had an easement, how do you push water without having a pump uphill?
I don't get it either. Water,
Even if you had an easement, because the
No,
lowest point
because
on lot one is 280 feet, and it immediately goes to 290, eventually gets to 300. So
20
I
feet.
remember that comment about the easement, but so what?
Water can't walk.
How much you gonna put a pump?
You would have
So are
to,
we trying to address a future problem here, potential, or are we
no, I think the
trying
board
to
has
revise the
accepted,
map note? that-
it's gonna be this.
Let me finish my question, please. Are we trying to solve a future problem here, or are we looking to revise the map note that Mary Lou just recommended to include the more strident its inclusion for the future?
I think Mary Lou's comment is good enough. Whatever they find when they develop lot one, they're gonna have to deal with. The issue of revising the map to provide an easement, I honestly don't see how an easement.
How benefits, right?
Because the problem is, we're not supposed to make bad laws. So so what we don't know is, by doing all of this, are we saying, if we don't do a full SWIP for the entire project here, maybe we're letting bad unbuildable lots or lots be built, they're gonna throw water all under 209, and swampy lots, and we end up flooding 209. So this, I feel like there's a bigger level of.
But SWIP was done for all 4 lots,
The SWIP what?
was done for all 4 lots. I'm reading.
Does it say anything about lot one? I don't remember.
Says
Lot one's
proposed-
part of the subdivision, it has to be called
Yeah.
that.
I don't remember.
So we are trying to
Subdivision
address
proposed
a
for lot.
potential future issue. So it's not as simple as just a map.
So what we do is we were done.
So this is the creative part. What are we looking to achieve with, for the future piece? And how?
So do you mind if I read this with you on lot one portion? This is lot 2, 3, and 4 will egress to Queens Highway, and lot 1 will egress directly to Route 209 and drain south to a roadside ditch along Route 209 to the creek.
What place you're on.
And there's a lot of assumptions about.
Doesn't have a purpose.
I'm on SWIP page 1, page 2, bottom. Host development
Post development
conditions. Yeah, second sentence.
The
So-
creek doesn't, the creek branches off and goes back into the.
They're
back
saying there's a
property,
ditch there that it's running
not to the creek.
On the other side of the road.
And
It's on
one-
the other side of another piece of property, and that creek goes up and goes towards, Voicemail Road.
But if there's already a roadside ditch there now, where is the Route 209 water going? The engineer is saying.
Maybe it's going under 209 and going up.
Across the Keller's field over there. So I think that lot 2, 3, and 4, I think we're all in agreement that that's okay, but lot 1, the egress doesn't seem satisfactory.
It's just something to smell test. I mean, have your engineers reviewed the SWIP?
Yes,
And they think this is fine?
no, I mean, they're at a point now where they've had off on consultation with the other engineer. But I, was explaining to you what the initial recommendation. I mean, it is acknowledged that, there's public record change, but the idea was that there was a certain volume of water that is gonna need to go somewhere. Yes, it will go bigger. So that was his recommendation, but my understanding is that that's not.
In the long-term maintenance plan, because it's a short-term and a long-term, which is the last page, second to last page, sorry. Long-term maintenance of individual lots will be the responsibility of the individual homeowners, which includes reseeding and fertilizing any vegetated area that become bare. So it doesn't really talk much about obviously seeding will slow the water, right? That's sort of
Marginal.
Concept of
Marginal.
but it's exactly.
So I'm still confused, Liz, I'm sorry. When the easement with culvert was recommended, that was way in the beginning of our process here. We didn't even have the SWIP yet, so they reviewed this.
No, it was the very first time that our engineer made comments that recommendations.
Right, so my thought is, it's more like going back to the engineer and saying, it's not that we don't approve that, we're confused because we all think it's going uphill. Maybe you didn't see that, or maybe you guys, there's another discussion that needs to be had just to make sure that we don't end up flooding 209 when we approve this.
Chair, one more note on the pre-development conditions, second paragraph. It says Lambacus Creek runs along the westerly portion of lots 2, 3, and 4, flows south to the Route 9 and continues crossed by a cross culvert under the state highway and is rated C by the New York State DEC. So Rick and Patrick, as you mentioned, that's the one going across the road into Kelder's Field. Surface drainage from a high point in lot 2 is sheet flow through the subdivision drainage, either west or south of the brook. There are federal wetlands 2, 3, and 4 we already know about. The location of the federal wetlands is shown on the map. It does not talk about lot 1's drainage in the pre-development conditions.
Well, maybe we need to hear from the applicant. If we have a note on the map that says when lot 1 is developed, you're gonna have to do a full SWIP. And it turns out we have this other SWIP from the previous engineer. It's gonna turn out that there's gonna be water that needs to be retained and disposed of. And so at the point in time that this is developed, what do you intend to do with if you're the developer, what do you intend to do with the water that's gonna be on lot 1 that needs to be disposed of?
Just like the word below. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna go right down below, so exactly. I mean, I'm actually a little, exactly the same height.
What are you suggesting that Valero's doing?
Valero, they don't have it.
I don't know what Valero does. We're not talking, we're talking about your lot.
He's saying that his topography is the same as theirs, so whatever their drainage plan is.
I don't even think they have a
I'm
drainage
a little
plan.
higher.
They didn't come to this board.
I don't think they can, because it'll come to engineer saying what that guy's doing. You know, I
It's
don't
sort
think
of-
that's.
yeah.
I guess the only thing I'm thinking is that the drainage might all be rolling in the same spot.
Right, so you see the existing.
Which
ditch?
might not be a good thing.
Agreed.
And
Which
then
might
my
overlay
point,
that.
yeah, exactly. Right, now you got a lot of stuff and then you exacerbate the problem. And then if stuff is coming down from the houses also, because you disturbed in the back there. So that's coming and that goes under lot 1 and that goes with Valero. And then, I don't know, it just seems like,
But we're in a consideration, I'm gonna put gutter drains, so I'm gonna dump them into a tank, right? So none of my water is gonna be going towards the land.
On lot 2,
Well,
3,
there-
and 4.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
If you're looking at the map, it says right basically on the property line between lot control and lot 1, that there's an existing ditch.
That's the water that we're.
We like to call it a low end.
Is that what you're looking at? Where you're
Yeah,
looking at?
yeah.
That's how they're funneling the water.
So the ditch is going down to 209, right?
Yeah.
Gotta be, I'm not sure whose responsibility, what happens to it once it hits 209. I guess it's the state.
And who's responsible for the maintenance of the ditch too?
It's on both properties.
Exactly. So, I guess there's a lot of concern, right? One is if the water would overflow the ditch and, you know, it's all of a sudden it's too much. Right?
Yeah.
Versus is it sufficient? So,
There are a couple concerns about having water flow along the road. It's water,
right.
it's sedimentation and gravel and sand, and also icing can create a problem on the road for traffic that has to be cleared up more properly managed. So that is
209 ditches 2 feet. Go for the length of the whole property, 250 feet long. I mean, that's all existing.
So what is it that we'd like to see in order to feel comfortable?
I mean, I'd like to see more analysis from their engineers, you know, about this kind of stuff. Saying like, we would recommend this, or what is here will be sufficient?
That was the conversation we had on Zoom. Their engineer, the resident engineer, my engineer, nobody knows it's gonna be up. Whether it's gonna be a McDonald's or it's gonna be a cafe.
No.
Well, I guess we could all throw our hands up and say one of two things. You gotta redo the drainage and provide some sort of easement going to drain the water more properly? Or do you look at when lot one comes in which case they may find they got a major problem with how to keep the water and the rocks and the sand and everything else going out onto Route 209, making, I have no idea how they're going to do it. They may have to apply to put a culvert under 209, to put it onto somebody else's property. That ain't going to apply.
You should get an easement.
You know,
Via
So
one of
it's-
the lots.
I mean, it seems like there's only two choices. We do it, or leave it for the
Leave
future
it the way it is.
with notations that there's an issue here because the contours are clearly heading down towards 209. And our engineers already indicated that there could be a problem. I don't know that there will be, but there could be. There's going to need some sort of detention, and then for how long do you detain it?
do you think that maybe the engineer would, talk more about lot one in their pre-development conditions? Because they talked in depth about 2, 3, and 4. Maybe if we were to see what lot, if the engineer were to provide more detail on lot one, maybe we would be a little more comfortable. I think I would be, yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
And, we weren't in that meeting, so
Right.
not all of us here are engineers. But it's kind of hard because we don't really know or understand what was said. There was a conversation and maybe there is a resolution, but if we could get something from both your engineer and Liz from an engineer at CPL that spells that out for us in much more detail, what that conversation was and what resolution they were able to come to.
So Nicole, for the minutes, that's.
How much water is it going to be?
Well,
Actually,
in pre-development conditions, that's where the topic, where they talk about 2, 3, and 4, in depth. If they can add something for lot one, I think that.
Maybe they need another phone call before them and then we need something in writing from everyone.
Yeah.
Where, when you were speaking about the easement before, you know where that easement was supposed to be planned for?
Well, the ideal situation would be to have it run, for example, I understand it's going uphill, but you have to get, you can easement to be able to allow the potential for a pipe to be able to go through there. So if there was a need for that, it would be in place. If there never was a need for it, it would be used. So that, the idea of it going in this direction was kind of rejected earlier on. But then, of course, the other concept would be to have an easement run along, let's see, the southern line of lot 4, and then along its western line, because then this blue line here is the flood zone, and right beyond it, you're in. So that was the concept, and yes, it does involve it, but at least easement would be in place so that when the applicant goes to sell this as a commercial lot, they would have that set in place if it's needed. And if it isn't needed, then somehow they can do the stormwater and send it all either toward the direction of Route 209 or I suppose west, but that would work, fine. But if it didn't work, they would have an easement. So that was the concept. And you could put, have them do another offline consultation, maybe a member of the board would like to be in on that. And have that discussion.
I think it's important. I remember the word discussion.
Okay.
Whatever's decided.
And it also
in
needs to
writing.
be reflected.
And
So
clear
the-
writing that we can have.
The gentleman from CPL that attended that meeting, write up minutes of the meeting, findings, or did
He
Mr.
didn't.
McCarthy, did your engineer write it?
My team was on, I don't even know about 45 minutes. And it was group, it was Peg and it was Liv.
So, what happened?
Did we
on-
record that? We will, I'm sure. So we have to-
What I wanted to say is that, based on the meeting, our engineer came back with
that
the resulting
recommendation.
comments.
It's coming to the document.
It's just, I feel sorry for you a bit because you're getting this the day of the meeting. You don't have any time to prepare at that time. The meeting was held. a couple weeks back. Let's see. Have we, so we're gonna ask for your engineer. CPL.
Another Zoom?
Another
So
Zoom.
if applicant engineer and CPL engineer and, probably a good idea to have some board members, somebody on. Hear the discussion
Yeah,
here.
we'll get somebody on there. Okay, so at 6-7 looks to be the same issue. What's going on, right?
Yeah, Chair, can I just make a comment on the map? It says that there's a 15-inch culvert pipe. Yeah. See it now? But
But it's a parallel to.
That's the
going-
one.
it's going with 209,
right? That's going into the
so
driveway.
where's the, okay, so that's.
And that culvert just hooks either end of the driveway with the existing ditch.
Agreed.
Whether or not that can handle the water that might go out onto 209.
Well, my question is a little bit more than that, is maybe on the map we can show where the culvert is that goes across 209?
If it even exists.
Well, we know what
Okay,
it is.
so let's,
The reason I asked that is because the applicant mentioned that there's a 2-foot ditch in the front, which we all know that that exists. In the event that that culvert was at the property line between Lucky and Lot 1, maybe there could be some drainage maintenance there that would be sufficient.
we'll add that to the end.
If we identify the location of where the culvert is going across 209, there might be some opportunity there.
If there is one going on.
We know there's one, it says there is.
Well, we want to identify the location, right?
It says there's one going over
I
209.
thought in the SWIP.
I hypothetically said there might be.
No, I think in the SWIP
In
it
the
said,
SWIP, it does say.
It does say there's one going over 209 or into 209.
You can see it on the map.
Right, so
here we go. Paragraph 2, sorry. Redevelopment, just Mabaka Street runs along west of the portion of lot 234 goes south to Route 209 and continues south via a cross culvert under the state highway and is rated level C by the New York State DOT. So we know there is a culvert, we just don't know where.
right, it's not on the map. So
I think
let's
that-
have them identify where it is on the map and give us the specs around it. So the 12-inch pipe is a 15-inch pipe. 2-inch pipe.
What if it's on Lucky's spot? Still.
That's okay. I think just.
Let's find out where it is.
So remember, if it's at the end of that existing ditch that we see, that could be your advantage because
The water.
the water will be running in that
Right.
direction.
So, but it also will give us an idea if it's on state, you know, if the state maintains it or.
Pretty much the rule, the way Lucky, all their water is running to down their line. That's the same concept we're looking for.
Yeah.
Now
We just don't know where it is. If it's in the middle of Lucky's property, then the water's coming down the ditch, down the road, down across.
Now we're on D, the secret EAF comments. This is on number 12. And again, this remains to be addressed with stormwater comments. Right?
Which I really want to do.
Well,
Well,
Yeah,
12,
okay.
same topic, stormwater. Right?
Yes, yes.
So just to summarize what we've asked you for on this, what we would read through. On 6A, a note on the map saying that it's a minimum 15-foot apron for lots 2 and 4. Right? The shared document, right? The driveway grade profile for lots 2 and 4. We waived the aerial photo, we waived 5.1. We've also waived those ones 3C. We're going to add a map note for the concrete washouts construction. And then in part of the resolution, we're going to document the stormwater, the gutters for the housing. The recommendation. Then we have the whole engineering piece that we want to do for the stormwater runoff. We're going to have the engineers speak to one another. Somebody can do participate in that as well. And then lastly, identify the location and specs around the culvert going in. Don't miss anything?
What about 12 inches wide?
I'm sorry.
In North 12 inches wide,
That was the first thing.
We already talked about that.
The 15
No, no,
foot.
okay, you're talking about, April.
Yeah, we said 15 feet
15 feet.
minimum.
Right, right, but,
Oh, you're saying this way.
these, right now, there is a note on the map, showing our driveway, but, these saying, add 12 feet wide.
That's a different.
Right, so it needs to be noted on the front.
Not an acre, on a driveway.
See, the width of the driveway needs our code, which is 12 inches per single driveway. To
12 feet.
Believe me, guys.
Basically, saying, is the same,
Yeah.
add 12 feet.
Yeah.
In front of proposed showing,
So that's another one, we need to mark, we need to put on the map how wide the driveway.
All the other driveways are marked that way.
Right.
So we
The
missed,
12-foot width.
I'm sorry, which lot did we miss the driveway with? The
Two.
shared driveway? I'm sorry,
Right?
two, with on driveway. But that's just.
yeah, because by the way, lot, 3 does say 12 feet wide. Well,
So just missing on the map. That's all.
Not to confuse anyone, but we talked earlier about the waiver for the soil type to be listed on the map. It actually
It's
is
on
on
the
the
map.
map.
No, but there's no.
Okay, so you want to
There's
list the
no-
end of detail?
Originally.
Well, you waived it.
We waived it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we
I
waived it,
recommend-
let's drop it, it's been waived. Okay. So before we open the public hearing section of Mr. McCarthy's application, is there any more discussion on what we talked about?
We have to do secret first.
here? Right,
I don't know if you did it yet.
I think we did it before we opened the hearing. Already made it.
Continued public hearing?
This is a continuation.
Got it,
All right.
got it,
Oh, So but good catch, thanks for keeping us on our toes. So, any discussion before we move? Okay, so we have 2 public hearings tonight. The first is Mr. McCarthy's continuation of that hearing that was open 2 meetings ago. And the second is Mr. Gray's, and that's the first hearing. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to run through the ground rules one time so that we cover it. So I'm going to begin with some background on why we're here for each of these applications. I'll describe the purpose of the hearing, how your comments will be used, and the hearing procedures. Following that, I'll describe what will happen after the hearing. It'll then be time for comments. At the end of the hearing, I'll provide a closing statement. So for background, Thomas McCarthy, Queens Highway and 209, SBL 762-2-5.12. Yeah, Mr. McCarthy is proposing the subdivision of the 17.1 acre parcel into 4 lots, 1 plus or minus 2.07, 1 plus or minus 10.4, 1 plus or minus 2.3, and 1 plus or minus 2.3 as well. And that's the driveway off of 209, that last one, the commercial. The parcel's in the business zoning district. Mr. Gray is a minor subdivision at SBL 60.30-3-48-600 on Sampsonville Road. And Mr. Gray is proposing the subdivision of a current 20.1 acre parcel to make the following: 1 lot, 1.5 acres, and lot 2, 18.6 acres, and the parcel is in an industrial zoning district. So the purpose of this hearing and the public comment period is to receive testimony and comments on the applications. These comments will be evaluated and reviewed as part of the application review process prior to a final decision. Please recognize that the planning board can only use the information and comments provided if it relates to the criteria the board must use as established by law in making decisions. So I outlined procedures that will be taking your comments before. So just to notice that the public hearing was noticed in the Squamish Journal on June 30th and July 28th for those applications respectively. And it was also noticed on the town website. So those in the room that want to make comments should sign in on the sheets that we have over here, so that we know who to call upon. I'll call on any of those who indicated on the sheet that they would like to speak on the order listed on the sheet. Anyone attending on the Zoom meeting will be called in the order provided on the screen after the comments in the room have been heard. We'll then read into the record any written comments that were provided. When all of those who have indicated a desire to speak again, I'll just solicit from the room again if there's anyone else that would like to speak. When we call your name, please step forward. Face the table, state your name. If you have written comments or materials you want to present, please stand up to Nicole. She'll distribute them for you. Each person is given 5 minutes to make their statement. I'll indicate when you have 30 seconds left. Please start wrapping it up. And then at the end of the allotted, within the allotted 5 minutes. If need be, I'll indicate when your time is at. Time permits, the speakers may make additional comments after all other speakers have been heard. You can do the second round if you have time. I ask that everyone be courteous and respectful to one another. Only one speaker should be speaking at a time. Please do not interrupt the speaker or shout out comments. Speakers will not engage in dialogue with audience members. This isn't intended to be a debate or a question and answer period with the applicant. Address your comments to the board, not to the applicant. Board members, however, may ask you for clarifying questions regarding your comments. The applicant is not to respond to any of the speakers, and at the conclusion of public comments, the applicant is provided time to address any concerns noted by public speakers. The way we use this information is your comment is being recorded on Zoom, and your comments will be part of the information the planning board considers in making a decision on the application. Following the close of the public hearing, the board has 62 calendar days to arrive at a decision on the application. So, any questions on the procedures? Anybody raising their hand on Zoom? All right. So, with that, we'll reopen the McCarthy public hearing. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak? One on Zoom?
There's somebody on Zoom, but if they would like to speak, you can unmute themselves.
Person on Zoom, can you unmute? Or you want to speak on the McCarthy here? Okay. Any written comments from McCarthy?
No written first.
All right. Taking a brief pause while people roll up their hands.
I'm not going out here. Air conditioning. Rather. We're all for it, guys. We need the rain.
So now we should go watch your ditch and just see how it's straight.
We'll be moving to approval next.
No. Well, we're trying to. Not succeeding to be all.
See, you'd be surprised at everything that's growing, but you don't have the pockets. Carpet.
It's really weird because all this stuff at the top of it.
Yeah.
Some places are getting an inch and some places
It's like a golf course. Down by the water, down by the water.
Okay. So we have any more comments from Mr. McCarthy with regard to the public hearing? So as a board, do we want to keep the hearing open? Want a motion to keep it open? Do we want a motion to close this section of it?
I suggest we keep it open until we get
A lot of engineers.
this other item, rather than put a huge time burden on part of the. I'll make a motion to keep the public hearing open.
Do we need a discussion on that?
Correct, we get a second.
We've got a motion. We have a second for the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So let's discuss the motion.
What, I'm asking council, what's the advantage, just because we're gonna have some new.
We're gonna have new information in the public. They have
Comments about
things
that?
to say about it. They have knowledge on that drainage.
I think it's a fairly significant, it's a pretty significant item, the last piece on the drainage. Based on not wanting to create an unbuildable lot. The primary, in my mind, that's the primary rationale. Yeah, so,
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Okay, nays? No? Thank you,
So
Mr. McCarthy.
You'll send us stuff over to.
Yeah, we'll send you a note. We got it. Thank you. Okay. Next item is. Ready.
I have a future question.
So we had sent you off with a few continues the last go round.
Anybody want a hard copy of the updated plan?
Paperwork. My notes somewhere here.
Put it in front of mine over there.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna use these in the hard copy.
Probably most of your letters.
Um.
I'm just trying to find what the takeaways were from the last.
Post meeting letter that that's dated June 6th.
Yep.
That's the only one that I have.
Openings.
Really mess up.
So the first was the establishment of the escrow.
Done.
Done. Excellent. Second item was modifying the plans, spot contours. Is that on the map?
Right, so the piece we had done for the July.
Oh,
Right.
oh, I'm sorry. I have the wrong file.
Did we send you a post July?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
Nicole usually.
It was
does.
an email.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't get into my email.
We wanted the
I'm in mine.
existing septic shown
Mine's not working. I don't know why.
and adjoining landowners on the opposite side of things.
Exactly.
The only two things that-
Thanks,
Yeah.
Terry. Yeah, there were only a couple.
Yeah, the only two things that were-
I know they're.
Okay. So that you, letters, supplanted by. And there's only 2 items. Sounds like they were done. That sounds like looking at the map, they were done.
I try to be obedient.
Yeah, we'd asked to clarify the ownership of 66 Road. I think we did that.
Yeah, we did it.
Map the septic and the neighbors. So that-
Yep, they're there.
Yep, they're there. Then the EAF.
So I don't have any other comments on the, for this meeting.
No other comments? All right, so were there any public comments from anyone in the room?
We didn't do secret.
We had to do- oh, all right. You just told me that. All right.
Open up to
That was the. What's that? That was the previous one. Yeah. We have the secret list of that.
We can do that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
That one? Yep. There you go.
So, does the proposed action only involve the legislative adoption of a plan, local ordinance, administrative rule, or regulation?
That's what we have to use it for.
Oh, this one. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with an adopted land use plan, or zoning regulation? No?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Will the proposed action result in a change in the use or intensity of the land?
Nope.
Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the existing community? Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area? I'm assuming that silence is.
No.
I said, no, we don't have any, we don't even
No
have
or
any.
small impact.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure for mass transit, biking, or walkway?
Nope.
No, it's not up there.
Yeah, thank goodness. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy and it fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
Nope.
No small impact.
Will the proposed action impact existing public or private water supplies, public or private wastewater treatment utilities?
No, small impact.
We don't have any.
Will the proposed action impair the character and quality of important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change of natural resources, for example, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage problems? No. Will the proposed action create a hazard to the environmental resources or human health? No. Okay. Based on this analysis, say that we determined that it has no or small impact.
No significant environmental.
Negative declaration.
I'll make a motion that we categorize this as a negative debt and unlisted action.
This is two separate ones.
I'll second that one.
And then we have to do a roll call.
Okay, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pinsky,
Yes.
Mr. Jarvis,
Yes.
Mr. Grasso,
Yes.
Ms. Lindstrom.
Yep.
Mr. Williams.
Yeah.
There's five.
Yes.
With that, now we can open the public hearing. So, no comments from anyone in the room? Is there anyone on Zoom that wants?
If there's anyone on Zoom who wishes to comment on the Gray subdivision application, please raise your hand.
All right. Are there any written comments?
Yes.
Would you like to read them in, please?
Would you like to do them or do you want me to? Okay. Okay, so the written comment received states this parcel of property borders Route 66 East, which is a private road. Years ago, a road maintenance agreement was drafted by all property owners along the road and filed with Ulster County. That contract agreement was neglected. Presently, Route 66 is in dire need of repair and hasn't been maintained for years. Route 66 East cannot handle any additional traffic and certainly not industrial traffic. This road / right-of-way needs to be repaired with a new maintenance agreement signed by all properties on this road before a subdivision is approved. This parcel is currently listed on tax maps as rural residential. So how does it fall into industrial zoning? Being a neighbor, I've never received any documentation regarding industrial zoning district approval. This property seeking subdivision has a creek that runs the length of the property, then under Sanseville Road, through a number of properties, eventually into Great Brook near Queens Highway. One of the properties on Route 66 East has been reported to the town of Rochester and the DEC regarding an abundance of junk vehicles that are possibly polluting the stream off Route 66. This environment issue needs to be addressed by the town prior to any subdivision approval. This request should not be approved. However, because Mr. Gray is an employee of the town of Rochester, it will most likely get approved. Signed anonymous.
Would you like to respond to that? Have the opportunity to respond to those comments?
There is a person up on that road that has a few too many cars on the property, and I think that's what they're talking about. And if this anonymous person, will probably know who it is. How can I say this without getting-
Just address the facts of that they've stated, and I think that's probably the easiest.
Okay, there's one place up there that has too many cars, and it's not my place. I'm going to have hundreds, and I only have maybe 8.
And are these, so the property that you're saying that has a lot of cars on, are they unregistered vehicles or registered?
But I don't see how that.
But they're not-
that's way up
It's
on-
irrelevant to
No,
this.
It's not, I'm asking, there's a reason why I'm asking. Because the person who's complaining can take their complaint a different route,
Correct.
right?
It should.
Based on being unregistered.
It should.
So we could advise them of that.
Yes. It's up past my place. I don't just.
Right, so that's fine.
And I guess the other thing about the maintenance of Route 66. These roads that go out, or these driveways that go onto 66, where we're doing the subdividing, already said.
Correct.
So it's
kind of
Right.
irrelevant.
But it is a
Right.
private road.
You know, they may have a private cause of action, but we don't get involved.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. That's an agreement. The maintenance of the road is an agreement with the homeowners, not an agreement with the town. If it's not being maintained, their remedy is to pursue a different path.
Yeah, and I wish they would.
Chair, I don't see any water on the parcel viewer anywhere.
So you're looking at the parcel viewer, and so while you're there,
Yeah.
you can look at the zoning of that. That it's industrial versus.
It isn't, no, it
Industrial.
is.
Right, just confirm it.
That is confirmed.
Is there, when you surveyed it, is there like a?
There's an intermittent stream that does come down and feeds the ponds seasonally.
I'm familiar with it.
None today.
Actually, there is after the, when I just got wet enough, I think maybe you're running.
Don't we ever having a letter just signed anonymous?
No, but I
Should we
mean,
be
people
answering?
don't have
They
to,
don't have.
They don't
we don't
have
have to
to sign.
answer them, but
Okay.
people don't have to identify themselves when they come to a
Can we
public
read that
hearing.
into the record? If you want anonymous?
Should we show where the intermittent? I'm
I think we
going out
should,
to the board, show where the intermittent stream is
I think it should at least be labeled.
for the future, vaguely for future development.
Which lots are?
Terry, where does it start? You have a look here like that. Actually, I'll make that. Where I'm saying, and that's true.
We call it on this. Very, why don't you hang on?
Sorry, we're gonna put it up
Sarah,
on
we're gonna put it
the
on the screen.
screen, so if you maybe.
We're gonna get laser pointers for next meeting. So we'll sit back and do it.
Yes.
Bill, where you going? Where you going?
Look at that.
I'll go
This
with
thing
it.
has a mind of its own.
You can make it smaller.
Make it, yeah, exactly.
So see this little dip right here in the contour? Basically, so the contour, so it runs down through there.
Right.
Contours show the value where that little intermittent stream goes. Now, the scale of the map was so small, and I didn't think it was very, it was that.
4 inches, how deep would you say that?
the depth of it,
Yeah.
it's maybe 4 inches, and it's maybe a foot wide.
Oh, wow.
That's
Oh.
why, you know, it's not a prominent feature that would normally be concerned about, but yes, somebody,
Does the pond have an outlet, Terry?
it has a pipe that goes under the road of Sampsonville as
Very large, probably a 30-inch pipe.
yeah, and it's like in the middle of the pond.
I see where across the street where there's another pond, on the parcel viewer, so maybe they are running into each other pond to pond, which is good.
Oh, yeah. Good. Yeah. So I guess again, and that's the property that has all the cars?
No, this property has all the cars over this,
Oh, we have over there.
way over here. Like I said, we're not saying who it is, but.
All right, so it has nothing to do with the application.
No. Okay.
So that's that. thing, so. Chair, I don't think we have.
Thank you.
I think we're fine.
Any further discussion? on it?
No.
Do we want to label it or we don't care?
Label
The
the,
answer.
The intermittent stream.
yeah, I think
No big deal, we throw that out.
Can't hear you, sorry, what?
He said yes.
You want a name on it?
No. Name it?
Yeah.
I
You
guess
have
I'm just gonna
100%
be
setback.
correct.
Very strict, he tricked me into that.
I think I have comments, I have no.
Do we want to open the public?
It is.
I think-
Do we want to close the
hearing?
public?
I would close it. I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Discussion on it? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So, from this point, we have 60 days to get you back a decision.
Really?
Really? Not 63?
That means we don't have one ready for you.
Yes,
We
I know.
don't
That's
work
what
right.
it is. Sorry.
So, the New York State law changed. What about?
That if
Once
you
it-
end the last
Right,
year,
so-
then you have to publish it 24 hours before the meeting.
I don't know if
They
you caught all that.
changed
Yeah,
open
you have
meetings
to do
law.
all that.
So for the open meetings law, any decision that we want to take a vote on has to be published at least 24 hours in advance of the meeting.
On the town
on the-
website.
Right. And it's best efforts to do that, right?
Yeah, I just came from Marshalltown, I just got conditional final approval.
It
right
doesn't
there.
mean that everybody follows the law, but there's a
I'm
law
just
there.
saying,
We follow it.
Okay, so
So,
the procedure
so
is
that's the-
minimum of 24 hours.
right, so from a procedural perspective, that pushes everybody off a month,
Okay,
zoning
so-
as well, so.
So
So I would expect by next month, we would be able to have a resolution drafted and perhaps have it.
Our habit, Terry, in the past has been, the decision gets done, it gets published the Thursday or Friday before the next meeting in September, whatever.
Well. And you have.
so basically, this is adding another month on to the procedure.
This way
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
zoning on the-
We can thank the state.
Well, there's ways around it. Okay, so I just need to know so that this way when I tell
If you
clients.
guys
that-
want to make up one now with all the finding, I mean, we do good decisions that have a lot, with some information so that they'll be upheld, that
I think
it's kind
I
of hard
think
to do
we
it on the
can
fly.
absolutely
But if you want to.
What, do a decision on the fly?
so.
No,
I think
Yeah, which we don't do.
next meeting, the answer is next meeting.
So I appreciate the legal advice that
Yeah,
you can do it.
I gotta tell you, what you
But-
really can't do.
Right.
Okay, let's move.
Let's have it. All right.
It's like I say, the big thing is so that I can let clients be aware that this is a longer process than what it's normally is, and that you're gonna.
Yeah,
have
that
to-
it takes,
We're gonna get what should be in a full, but, not. in a full.
takes a little bit longer now.
So
You
I'm
know?
gonna have to wait
The
another
process takes
month.
a little bit longer than it used
Right, because there's really nothing to be done between now and then, other than writing a.
And you can give us that map with
Yeah.
a little
Right.
information stream on it.
Those conditionals.
Terry Brook.
Yeah.
You can ask for all that as many times as you want. I'll never name a brook.
All right.
All right, guys, thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
So,
Next up, DPT.
so now there has to be some,
I'm gonna-
A bunch of
Mark,
Yeah, me too.
speak 15 minutes. Don't we just have to read the one, added one now? There is. As presented, exactly. And then you can just mention.
okay, hang on, I think everybody through.
So you suggest. Just.
So, hang on. What do you want to do?
It's up to you, Chair.
No, what are you handing me? is what I'm
I'm
asking.
handing you a draft revision like you have.
This is the conditional approval,
Right, so that is the clean version of what Liz has sent.
Right.
This is the one that shows marked revisions in red.
Okay,
This is the one that I had edited after the last meeting.
So that's what was
With-
put on
With
the,
the 12 and
that's what went on
13
the
ads.
website.
That is what went on the
this is
website.
what. I'm
Yeah.
gonna-
That's what you-
So this one doesn't have 12 in it.
It's,
It might have on the-
it might.
The one from the-
All the way through, they're all on the- No, it doesn't matter. That's the whole.
All right.
So Chair, we submitted the updated map with all the notes that Nicole sent us last month.
Right.
All the 1 through 11s,
Correct.
and then 12 and 13, we have not,
That's right. So,
but we don't know where we're going.
all right. So 12 and 13, I'm sorry. What? No.
We're okay. You're saying in the future, perhaps we can change
Red
the
level
version, so then we
or-
know exactly what we.
So that we know which one is most current.
Right. Yeah, well, okay, we can talk about that.
Yeah.
All right. So we went through it pretty extensively last time. The only significant changes were the map notes and adding a section in 12 and 13 in the conditions, right?
Yes, so we provided all of the items 1 through 11 on the map notes. The current map that is in the file has all those items checked off. And then we have not heard back on what the finding was on 12 and 13, so.
So why don't we just go to 12 and 13 rather than read through the entire thing? Appreciate the flexibility of doing that. So in 12, what we're saying is the applicant shall provide a written easement to be filed simultaneously with the subdivision map in the office of the Ulster County Clerk, covering the easement area shown on the map for use by the town of Rochester for highway purposes, including maintenance of the roadway. The easement must be approved by the attorney for the planning. The applicant will be responsible for repair and any damage that occurs to the roadway or easement area during the construction of any improvements upon the subdivision lots, including but not limited to the replacement of any damaged pipes or culverts. A note shall be provided in the final map indicating that this written easement is being filed with the Ulster County Clerk simultaneously with the filing of the map.
Not the whole easement, just that sentence.
Okay. We're good. Okay.
You good, John?
Okay. 13 was, the applicant shall provide an agreement regarding the construction and ongoing maintenance of the drainage easement shown in the subdivision map to be approved by the town, by the attorney for the planning board, and be filed simultaneously with the subdivision map in the office of the Ulster County Clerk. The final subdivision map shall include a note specifying that the lots over which the drainage area is located are subject to an agreement that is to be recorded in the Ulster County Clerk's office.
My attorney is currently working on that, and we'll get with Mary on that verbiage.
And we're putting that directly on.
Yeah, just a sentence that there will be, the two notes, one that there will be an easement filed in the clerk's office, and one that there will be a drainage easement over I'm not sure if it's lot 3 and 4 or just.
2 and 3.
2 and 3, okay.
Okay.
Okay, lots 2 and 3 will be,
So between line item 12 and 13, there will be 3 total notes. Is that correct?
no,
Two.
no,
One
two.
for 12, one for 13?
yeah, 13 could just
already
mention
have-
both lots.
Got it.
You already have
That's
11.
why I was asking.
You already have 1 to 11 on them. You have-
Yeah, we already have that on the.
So 12 and 13 are the only addition.
Correct.
Okay. So.
So,
Yep, go ahead.
so I'm okay if we go forward and leave it to the chair not to sign this
Right.
until 12 and 13 appear on the map.
Yep.
Those notes. And those notes require that everything be reviewed by Mary Lou, so the chair would just need to have Mary Lou say, okay, yada, yada. yada.
I think you can just do it as it's. And
They can vote on
presented and
findings
amended,
the approval.
even though those other things are already on there, it's not a big deal if it's still in the decision and they're there already.
Okay.
We don't have to take them out, and that way we can double check everything before it's signed.
So the resolution should be, or rather, the motion should be approved.
Do you do the findings stuff that like the motion for the findings?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Did you do the motion for the findings?
Yes.
Did we do the last time?
We discussed them,
I don't know that we.
I don't think any motions were.
We did.
but there was no motion,
Amendment.
because the,
We were not sure on 12 or 13.
we only had 1 to 11 last time, now it's 1 to 13.
Well, I make a motion to approve the findings as they were read in the last meeting.
And I just adjusted a little bit, so which now includes notes. 12
No, 12 and
No.
13 are the decision on the lines.
Okay, you're right.
Okay. So the motion as stated, is there a second? Second. So now you can say, is there any reason to amend the motion as proposed?
For the findings, no.
All right. Take a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Next,
I would make a motion to approve the decision as amended to the item number 12, condition number 12 and condition number 13 as read by the chair.
I'll second that.
any discussion on that? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No, wait.
Yeah. I don't even know what to do.
But don't
I
forget,
think you just send them a bigger bill.
have 180 days, have 180 days. Don't do that.
All right. 5 days, you said, right, Rick?
5 days. After which we're going to expire.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Nicole, do you want the? Yes, everybody's.
I'll take it for the file.
8:23. There's your time.
Thank you. Is it back?
And they're back.
On the review.
Mr. Dawson, how I miss you.
Shirt, sure.
You want a rainbow, babies there.
Liz, I think you're on this.
Hi, Liz.
We're just gonna wait. I'm sorry to go over the laws. No.
What have you done, Jack's sweater? That's what's so cozy. Jack, I look good on you. Look good on you. Look at everything.
So. This was dated 7. Yeah.
We lost our lunch.
Dantonville.
Did they really call?
Oh, Dantonville Road, be like.
But you know, we have to storm that fire. with-
Oh,
Out all the way up to my former school, staying with my mother with
In the
candles.
dark.
Right now, it's the dark. Yeah.
Oh,
With the peril.
Yeah.
We have
We have a generator, but it's going that way.
So he probably had the first thing.
Okay.
And it's not part of that.
All right.
Hey, the most
Good call.
beautiful.
All right.
Beautiful.
Let's get started on this. There were some items outstanding from last time. The first being the most important, a check for escrow. Is that today?
We appreciate that.
Yes. And then,
Get a raise.
all right, the next was on the map, the 100-foot depth buffer from the wetlands high water mark added to the map. Okay. Steep slopes and the DEC overlay added to the map. All right. Aquifer protection overlay added.
How do you add that to the whole thing?
I was gonna say, is there just a note somewhere? Because I don't see it on here. When we go for one, assuming it's just a motion.
Is there a note on it?
No, but you will see what. Because this whole thing is aquifer protection, there's nothing, you just probably a note that says.
On the bottom of the property, we did not, protection overlay just.
Yes.
That's all we need.
I'm like, I know we talked about that.
Yeah.
I talked to.
Actually, it wasn't. Nicole brought it up.
Down in the bottom, right above notes, this property.
Hang on, my
is
glasses
above
are-
fire.
It's right in the left hand.
Yeah,
I see it now.
right there.
Here, Mark, I have it up on the.
We're good. No, I see it.
All right.
It's tiny.
What? We didn't ask him.
No,
The font.
I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it. That's why.
We'll have to amend the font for. All right. Floodplain added to the map?
Yeah.
So, marking of the soils on the map?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
Too many lines on his map. I can't look at it.
TMF.
PMF.
I get dizzy.
EMF.
You can make one of
Sand.
those coloring books.
Yes.
So, just hang on. So, Mary Lou, I know you had some comments.
Yes, you had asked, me to just look to make sure that they did have access to 209 because you'll see that the lot line and where it shows 209 don't exactly match. They do have access. Their deed does show that it goes along 209, so my guess is this is the travel way of 209. But yes, they absolutely have access.
Oh,
from-
yeah, that land was given to
From
them
209.
when the driveway was put in, because it's a steep slope.
Yep.
And they
that's
wanted
slow
to have
down.
control over the trees that were along the road.
Yep.
Who's there, DOT?
Yes.
So when that, actually, before that
Let
road
me
was
answer
put in, because that road was there a long, long time ago. It was agreed that they could have that land, because the tree is so steep, they wanted to be able to cut all the trees down to them.
Yeah.
And that's
That
why
was a deep review.
it looks
Right,
like we're
so I
crossing
reviewed the
now.
deed and they're absolutely fine.
All right.
Thank you.
And then show you, we got the letter from Shippo.
Did we get that back?
Yep.
And we got the stuff in the letter too.
You want to submit letter as
Shippo
well.
was clean. All right.
I don't think they'll say anything, do we send it to our historic preservation? And over, we can send a ship with the house, the red house across the street.
I don't think we made a motion.
They didn't make a motion.
We sent it to Shippo, I think.
Why would you want to go to
I-
historic preservation?
Red one. We have referred people before, if it is within 500
Okay, hold on.
feet, either our ECC or like I said, EEC, or so we have tried previously if there were internal groups that mattered, if you, especially because then the red house was here. Yeah, obviously. I was just throwing it out there.
No, I hear
I
you.
thought you guys were doing that at the workshop.
We sent it to Shippo.
Yeah, exactly.
This is to the
Local.
To
Yeah,
the
local
local,
historic
so we would do that if it was, you were changing a locally historic house. But they should have
Like
done
the
it.
red house. Thank you, guys.
The red house should have been sent when the guys did what they did to the red house.
Repco. Okay, so is there a motion to send it to our
No,
historic?
no,
or
no,
is
no,
it-
no, no, no,
No.
no.
Very good.
Moving on, sorry.
Okay. So with that, is there anything else that we require? I'm sorry.
Require, okay, I have a question. Looking at this plan, and consider where the well, what located, current well located, should owner of, potential owner of lot two be aware that there is a well right next to the borderline, so they don't do anything harmful to the well? To basically show that the radius.
That's just 100-foot buffer. The water has never come up.
No, we're
No,
saying,
no, no, what
we're
I'm
saying the
saying-
well on lot one is on the property.
Oh, right.
Do we need to notify or put anything?
Or put that simple, 100 feet or a feet long. So,
Is there-
owner of lot two.
That's very good.
Should be aware.
Just
Just draw the 100 feet around that well, so the people on lot two would know.
Don't do.
But they wouldn't get a building permit.
Right, well, it's already with how septic goes.
Way far away.
So is there something, is there a building, sorry, is there a house on lot two already?
No,
No.
No.
Right, so when they went for the building permit.
you won't get it without it.
But I think it's a good idea, as Soren says, to point out the circle to the buffer.
Right.
The
The
well
only,
is
the
during-
only, the only spot for the proposed dwelling and proposed field.
Right, it's on the
Down on
top.
the road.
Way
Yeah,
down
they're not gonna
below.
build where the well is.
Yeah, if you couldn't do it over here.
Right.
That's why we didn't, because I discussed it with them later.
So, John, the driveway is, when you drive there, it's the existing driveway that, is for the petroleum, right? They're both gonna go in exactly the same, and it's gonna branch
That's for
off.
the new lot, yeah. Well, actually, that's really not shared anymore, but because it's deeded that way, we left it alone on the map. Their driveway is now on them, and his driveway, you can see, is on him.
And they have plenty of frontage on both sides.
But because it's already deeded this
The
right.
easement's not gonna be shared is the question.
Nothing shared, no. Nothing.
Because Petroni, she has her own easement, and this is the neighbor on the lot.
It'll just be like right next to each other.
Sean, where's the well for the new lot? For the proposed,
Over,
all the way
over to the left,
Oh, I see. All right.
right by the 100-foot buffer line.
Show the 100-foot circle.
That's what we just talked about.
No, we're talking about the one down below.
Just
That
below
one.
the-
Here's two.
This is on the other.
The one that Sorian brought up was the well existing lot.
Oh, it's here, it's existing well.
There's a well on the property line between 1 and 2 that Sorian brought up, and he asked that the 100-foot circle be drawn.
Yes.
I
And
asked
there's a
about
new-
use the new well for lot 2.
It says existing.
It says existing, so just draw the 100-foot whatchamacallit around that.
So do we have, well, I guess if, Jeff gives you a driveway permit, then it's a moot point for us. But that's a crappy corner, like 2 driveways right next to each other on.
Yeah, but I think the driveway's already there.
There.
He's already had a permit. Remember, this driveway goes all the way through from Post Mill to 209.
That's what I just said, and you guys said there's gonna be new acres.
But we said he's not gonna go through, they're not going to
So we didn't say we should-
enter through 209 for
Oh,
lot two.
I'm way back up. Okay, Greg just told me to understand. This. Yes, I was on exactly where, on Boyce Mill, where they enter, were you gonna put another one next to that?
That's there already.
And they're just gonna use the one that is there already.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
The
No,
one
we
that's
tried
there-
going back
the
to
one that's
09.
there
Look, we
already.
got it. You guys were on 209, I
Yeah,
was
we
on
were
Boyce
back to
Mill.
09.
Got it fine.
And it is a bad corner, but it's
It's already there, exactly. I was gonna say, if you're gonna put another one next to it at that corner, then they could like chop. it.
You're never going left there.
But you're never gonna be there. We could try.
No, wow.
And there's some deer that always hang right around the corner there.
Yeah.
Could you put those on the map,
Yeah,
Jack?
exactly. Deer on the map, exactly.
one.
They're always there. Yeah, exactly. The baby buck, the little guy.
Not for long.
Yeah.
Any other questions? for Mr.
I'm
Dawson?
good. How many deer months?
I make a motion to, set a public hearing.
I'll second that.
Discussion, we're ready for public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
See you later.
See you later.
Thank you.
I'm cold, you get half my bedtime.
I know.
Don't take crotchety.
Mr. Hennessy is not here.
Joe, I just moved.
What's that?
Oh, okay. I second the motion of. We table it to the next meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
So just a minute to say, would you contact them and tell them they gotta be here for that?
Yeah, they were notified.
Do they have a representative?
No.
They're representing
Well,
themselves.
no.
They do have a.
They had an attorney in zoning.
No, it was a surveyor.
But we would need a,
No, they have to.
Oh, well, yeah.
we would need a representative letter of the license.
Are you talking
Well, it's not
about?
in the file.
I don't go to
No.
The lady, she was the surveyor. That was, business hour.
Moving on.
Moving on. Okay, other matters, town board referrals.
Yep.
Done.
Going in, we're going in.
J. Oh, it's J.
So give Mary Lou an opportunity.
Thanks, Mary Lou.
It's been lovely.
Then you just go into another one?
Oh, I didn't do my J. I did do J and then I posted it by accident. And then I took it off. No, it's got.
Thank you. All right. Where are all my nice notes on this? All right.
Hi, Mary Lou.
See you later.
Which one do we want to start with?
J.
J?
Under the J.
J is,
Admin and enforcement.
all right. So let's give Nicole a chance to come back. Oh, I thought this was. I think, in my view, there should be a statement in the front that sort of says, code enforcement and building inspector. Agreed. Should are heretofore known as CEO.
Agreed.
So
No,
that we
you
don't.
can have both.
Huh?
You can have
I know, but
totally
you can have both, but they're not really splitting the roles and responsibilities between them except in one section of it. But
Because
they're combining it a lot here.
because either one can do it.
I know. So I think if we said, if there was a preamble that said code enforcement and building inspector can be treated together or separately, and then just use that one term, chicken.
But the code, but.
Farmer.
But but some of them can't do the code enforcement. Like, if you had two separate, a code enforcement officer
Right.
cannot do what a building inspector does.
Sure.
So
Agreed.
if what you're saying, if you say they'll be put together here to forward, you can't do that in the rest of them because the building inspector. only-
So I think there's places where they mix it and there's places where they split it. So let's go through.
If I use the word or a lot,
Yeah, and
Which-
or, right.
which kind of takes care of
Wouldn't
It
be a
could be either
definition
one
where it's all
person-
that?
two different
This is
people.
the definition of the code enforcement, this is the definition of the building inspector.
Right, I just found it confusing that it wasn't. So, okay, so let me back up just a little bit. So I know myself, I like things that are very black and white. But I also know, after having written a lot of SOPs and and audit procedures and things like that in my career, that sometimes we build in less specificity in order to provide for greater discretion in analysis and interpretation. So where I'm looking for specificity sometimes, reel me in and go, specificity is not a good thing here, Bruce. We want to have some flexibility in it. And I'm okay with that. I know that about myself. So just so when I'm asking you for,
So this is another one we keep keeping Mary Lou out, and this is one of the questions you would ask Mary Lou. How, in writing municipal law, is this supposed to be written vaguely? So I know when we went through this with Mike, I kind of channeled it was only building inspector, and since we merged the role into one person, ideally we added, okay, we better say code enforcement officer, because rather than person, it didn't even exist in our law. A previous law, without the red in here, was building inspectors did things, but we had this other entity, happens to be the same person in our case,
right?
that we didn't even assign any stuff to.
I think
So-
that's where the definition is important.
Right, so what we're looking for is the recommendation. So our recommendation could be, we would like you to have better define the role of code enforcement officer and building inspector in this section.
But you're not supposed to, I don't, we can say that, go ahead and say that, I think you only define things in the definition.
I'm sorry.
You only define things
The only
in the
put
definition.
definitions under
In the
definitions.
section. Agreed. And
So-
is it in the definition section? Those two words?
Let's go to email.
It's,
recode.com/RO 1435.
Actually, it goes to 6.
Ecode 36.
Definition.
It's code enforcement.
The other C, right?
under what, C, correct.
No. There's nothing, code enforcement officer is here, person charged by town board with responsibility for admin and enforcement of this law, also known as building inspector.
Oh.
See, there you
Under
go.
building inspector, there is a building inspector, person charged by town board with responsibility for admin and enforcement of this law, also known as code enforcement officer for building department. You know what? This is where we're not lawyers.
Right.
And just say, you could say we're a little bit confused. But it's up
I
to
think that
them
they should better clarify within the definition section.
what
people,
code
what a code
enforcement is. versus-
And what, so that's where you do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not here.
It's fine. I'm just saying, I think it needs,
I totally agree.
because I went and read exactly what you read. Lou,
Totally
see
agree.
Lou.
Would you like me to add a comment that says better defined within the definition section?
Within the definition
Both rows?
section, both rules should be more clearly defined.
And if you don't give it a number for
All
the
right.
definition section, it's 140-4.
Somebody's gonna be looking for a raise.
They're actually going the opposite way. Going part now.
All right, so, yeah, right. So 140.59, code enforcement and or building inspector. Which may be the same person.
Right, tomorrow it might be two roles, today it might be.
Yeah,
the same.
why the same name, the same person?
Right now,
Yeah,
there's,
it is.
right now,
It
there's
is.
only one
Jerry
person.
did.
It's fine, but
I think they're trying to give the opportunity to say, in the future, we might hire an actual building inspector and keep a code enforcement. officer.
right, so code, or, so why say maybe the same person?
Because the job responsibilities do not entirely overlap.
No, I understand, that's what I'm saying, consider it two different person, practices, maybe, it's a basically circumstances of.
Right. You're exactly right.
One
You can
situation.
strike that whole sentence. And just, you can strike out which may be the same person just simultaneously.
Why are you bringing all the
Right,
things
you
up?
don't need that.
Today it's maybe the same person, tomorrow it's not maybe the same.
Right, if you say the town board shall provide for the services of a code enforcement officer and or building inspector to enforce the provisions of this chapter and other
Yeah,
applicable town laws. Right,
That's
Yeah,
my point.
I agree, you don't need. That's just a circumstance, it's not,
Yeah.
right.
Are we recommending that change?
I think we should change it now. Yeah. I'm good. Yeah, okay.
Okay, so.
You just.
We're
just strike
striking-
through it.
Just put this thing.
They should drop which name for the same person.
What was added in, just take out what they added in.
Just suggest that.
Remove. So stricken.
Right, and take out simultaneous. The word simultaneous. No. Because that implies that he has to do it. Or you both got to fill up. Right. Okay.
It's gotta be schizophrenic and talk to himself at the same time.
Well, I do that.
Something wrong?
So. Problem call when I answer this. Anything else when 14059? So, okay. 14060. I'm sorry.
I have a comment to do one.
No.
On E1,
Which section?
E1,
There's no
E,
one.
yeah, it's my one, okay, no. E. It says shall have also county department of health permit if required by whom? It's confusing.
That's what I said too. I said the same thing. It says, building inspector shall ensure that all water supply and sewage disposal facilities proposed in connection with any building permit or certificate of occupancy application shall have an Ulster County Department of Health permit if required. True.
Yeah.
Or waiver. What can the building inspector point? Right? Who's he getting that from?
Yeah, it's required by whom?
If required, right?
Yes.
What's,
It's required by zoning regulations.
Right, it's required by the law.
By the law.
If they're doing an ADU, it might be different than if they're
Exactly.
going to do, well.
So if you want, just say it's required by law,
okay.
Yeah, so,
by code, I said it's required, I mean,
Right.
If required, period.
if required, just if required, period. Just
Okay.
If you get, that's one of those things where you're getting to, like, if required by law, now, no, it could be a regulation, not a law. Or it
Could be a code.
Or it could be a code, and you just said law, but it's a code, and now the person says, I don't have to do it because you said law.
That's.
Okay, so leave that
That's.
one.
Leave it alone.
Gotta be vague, if required, exactly by God. God comes in and starts doing sewage. We're like, yeah,
God
okay.
bless him. So then-
God bless him.
Just to continue in that, where it says, shall conform to the standards of New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Codes, Town of Rochester Road Standards, and shall have access permit approved by the agency having roadway jurisdiction. Does this also apply to private buildings?
could be any road. Because.
Do we
if-
have to do?
Well, on a private road, it doesn't have to be hang on, I gotta pull the code. But on a private road, it doesn't have to meet a certain,
There's separate standards for private road.
thank you, that's
And
right.
if there's a curved cut of a private road going on to a town road
Or a
or a
county
state
road.
road, you need the highway superintendent or
Approval.
the DOT to weigh in on it or approve it. So.
It would be the next highest jurisdiction.
So it doesn't.
So again, this
Okay.
is,
If I get back up to B.
Yep.
Where we have applications, this is sort of, I wish, we have to start numbering these lines, so we can just call out a line. This is sort of near the end of it. There's application, the
140.
applications for such permits shall be made to the code enforcement officer or building inspector prior to any construction activity and or change in use plan. And it says the officer, where it should say the code enforcement officer shall review such applications and act upon them according to requirements of this chapter, rather than just the office.
I think that's one of those ones where they're leaving it open because it could be building
Inspector or
the code.
So-
So now it's of the specific code enforcement officer, specific building inspector, just officer, that probably should be defined also in definitions.
it
And
really
in fact,
should
just a
be.
guy who works,
Yeah.
one of those two
Well,
guys, who
it
could also
should-
be the same.
Well,
guy.
no, it should be titled officers of our code, and then those two should be underneath them.
Those are responsible.
Those are
for
responsible for
administration or whatever.
whoever shows up that day.
Exactly.
You wanna go to another one?
Okay, moving on.
Another one.
So-
Nothing on B.
Okay.
Unless you see anything.
I mean, it could say either of these persons shall review such application.
Could say and or.
Or and or.
I'm okay with it.
Right, and I have the same statement for C where it's issued by the code enforcement officer or building inspector.
I think the point of it is that one of them is gonna do it, we're just not sure. Today, it's the code enforcement officer, but tomorrow it could be.
Well, the point is on C, it's very specific about only the building inspector shall be authorized to make such inspections, not the code enforcement.
Right,
So they're real specific about that.
exactly. Like I can remember debating this
But
with
see,
Mike,
that's not right.
but if you go,
But today, we don't have a building inspector.
Yeah, we do.
yes, we do, Jerry's building.
Jerry's
inspector.
code.
He's a building inspector, he's a fully
Yeah, either both.
But his
certified.
title in the town, under our payroll, is a code enforcement officer,
But so E,
just because he is a.
you're right. So if you, this is, once again, and Mary Lou can fix this, because she goes through it.
Yep.
I think, if E, the building inspector, well, he's not called a building inspector, but he is a what, certified building officer. A certified building inspector. Okay, no, so in his role as building inspector, a code enforcement, if it was split up, E, the code enforcement person couldn't do that. So when it only says, it's up to the duty of the building inspector to issue building
I
permit.
see,
The
I
code
see.
enforcement guy can't do that at all,
Oh.
period.
but because Jerry has,
Both titles.
Yes, if they're formula and abuses.
He puts his building inspector hat on and
it's an interesting way, because hypothetically, so what Mark's saying is right, is if there is two different people in that capacity, the code enforcement officer can't do that.
can't do that.
That's right.
Cannot do that. Cannot do G. But either one could do E, make sure that your water supply is, make sure that you've got your Department of Health certificate and stuff like
That's
that.
backwards, but yeah, no, you're right, I
Yeah.
agree.
I mean, it's
Okay, so
kind
no
of
change there.
Obviously, the building inspector has more clout
than the
Yes.
code
than the
enforcement.
code
Yep.
enforcement officer. Okay, moving on. That's a weird,
You-
in this topic, I mean, right, in this category, code enforcement.
So in B, the building inspector with the approval of the town board may issue a temporary permit for an otherwise non-conforming structure or use which will promote public health, safety, welfare, provided such permit shall be limited in duration and use or structure shall be completely removed within 90 days of expiration of the activity for which it was granted. A temporary permit shall not be valid beyond this period for 3 years from the date of issuance, whichever is shorter. So, activity is vague and I get that. I'm okay, but what if my activity is 2 years long?
Could I get,
What
within
item?
a period of time?
What item?
Yeah.
On D,
I understand what you're saying, but
you would have to ask.
I have 2 years and 90 days. Right? Okay. Is that what we want? Is that what you guys intended?
Actually, on that one, this was what was the code before. Anything red is anything we have. The other stuff is what we have was already. the code.
Oh, it was already,
Black is the code.
Black is the code, current.
that doesn't, okay,
So we could say we don't like the code currently like this.
It's a good opportunity to do it now.
Right.
I don't. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
can we maybe just putting an indication in there that this use rewording or clarification
Agreed.
Of that last
Absolutely.
sentence.
of that?
that, right, and that's fine. That we think
This
that,
way it's notated and we can go through and.
So basically,
snippet.
in layman's terms, this is saying you can get a permit,
right,
but only for 3 years or less.
Right.
So you can't extend. Yeah, it needs to be better clarified.
Exactly.
so how temporary is a 3-year permit? Okay,
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Right,
That's a relative.
And another thing to say there is have them double, this is the killer thing here, refer back to the non-conforming stuff that we already looked at to make sure those time periods are the same as this time period.
right,
That's your worst thing you can have is, I don't remember what they were, but they need to,
Coincide.
refer back to the non-conforming law that they're changing, make sure that these time periods are all the
so what you
same.
want to do is make sure there's referential integrity.
And that is the absolute worst hardest thing, which is why they should all be done, yeah. If you use the word referential integrity to them, that'll really throw them.
It's in there.
Please assure there is referential integrity.
Change the spelling to reverential. instead of reverential.
They'll know that Bruce said it. The rest of us, it is like a default, which never comes.
All right,
Moving right along, right along, right? E.
We did that already.
Yeah, we did that.
They didn't change anything.
They didn't have any changes except
Next
spelling.
page is
correct?
I have a question. K. Maybe I'm wrong.
Which one?
Okay,
K, yeah.
I got one on G. Wait.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, G.
So when the building inspector is not satisfied, that the applicant's proposed development will meet the requirements of this chapter, you will refuse to issue a building permit or as the case may be. The applicant may appeal to the zoning board of appeals. So other towns won't issue permits or certificates of occupancy if the taxes are not current, or at least on a plan that's current. So just like we don't issue permits for properties that are currently have code violations. So this is one of those things where that's a theoretical thing. Is there really a practical
I'm sure that they
aspect of
don't. I'm sure
people
they-
being in arrears for taxes?
I think you have to be in good standing before you can even apply for the permit. Is that not true?
No.
No, I don't think they have anything here. They do have it for outstanding violations,
Violations, correct.
but you're right about the other
Well,
one.
that's not, that should be
About
added.
the payment of taxes.
You should have to be in good standing in order to apply for a permit.
I agree.
I totally agree.
Let's add that.
Good G.
Yeah. That's a good
So
point.
I'll give you the wording, but I have some from no.
An old zoning.
An old
He'll send
building.
it to you.
Hey, I want to build this stuff, and I haven't been paying for like years, but just give me a building permit.
Exactly.
I'll get around to
I
paying
can't even
eventually.
believe that's even allowed. Hey, I don't pay my taxes, but I want to add them down. Wait, what?
Okay, Zorian, anybody have anything on H, I, or J?
No, there is no red there. Sorry.
I didn't do.
Well, just as an aside on what we said about adding that verbiage about taxes, Mary Lou may say, even though it's done in other towns, that's not legal.
So I've had that discussion with them.
Did you? Okay. What'd she say?
The town board wants to go and do it, you can do it.
Okay.
She was doubting as well, and I showed her samples of it from like Oneida County, other towns in New York State that had that.
Okay.
She challenged me on it.
I'm sure the reason that it's not already on there is we do have some parcels in our town that don't pay taxes.
Okay, but that's okay. They don't have to pay tax if they're current on it. They're not in arrears,
Well, how can you be current on it if you don't pay any?
Right.
because none is owed.
Then maybe that should be the verbiage.
Okay, we'll let them sort
Well,
of-
that's
we'll
But I
let
did
them
sort
cover it.
but I
accidental
did-
tax limits, that's it.
Okay, I
Oh.
did verify it.
Can
This
you
was
be
a couple
current?
years back.
None is owed.
All right, next.
Kay was,
Yeah, I have a question with sentence, maybe I'm wrong. All applications shall be made on forms as shall be developed. Should be that shall be developed, or it's basically can be them as instead of them.
It is kind of confusing.
Yeah, that needs to be cleaned up.
so you're talking about the. former-
Change as to that.
Right.
All applications shall be made on form that shall be developed.
We need Sam. Thou shalt.
Yeah,
be-
needs to be periodically updated with code enforcement officer, building inspector, instead of that.
Applications
That,
may
right?
include, not shall include plot plans, but may include plot plans.
No, shall, if you want a plot plan, you use shall. Shall's the law. Do not may anything unless you want people not to do it.
Okay,
Shall says you have to do it.
yes, I.
So my.
I learned that, I did the feeling.
The hard way.
Hey, the hard way, I'm like, they're like, no. Shall is like God's zoning.
Yeah, exactly.
I could just see the mother. You shall.
You
do your
shall
homework.
clean your
No,
room.
no, Mom. I want it to be may.
I may clean my room.
Okay, moving on.
So my sense of just correct here?
Yeah, we fixed it.
We got it again.
So,
You guys are on.
Oh, and then, L and M, it's the same thing twice.
right,
Or-
well, one is the
Well,
building.
one-
Or
permit,
the
one is
building
zoning.
and one zoning. Got it. My bad.
But they can combine it and just say a building
They-
and.
It looks like that's how
It must be-
it
that's
was.
That's what it was before, and somebody must have, I swear to God, there's been an error thing, like people are so stupid, they don't say building/zoning, they had to spell it out, they wanted to spell it out again.
You're saying that Erin is what?
No, moving
No,
on.
Erin wanted it that way because she said people
Moving on.
look at it and they don't see the vote.
I would agree with you, Mark, but they added it.
No, okay, I'm good, we'll keep it.
Right.
They want to write an extra letter.
Anything else on here? R, S, T, U?
Block A.
No, 14062.
Yep.
C, sorry,
Which one?
C.
14062C?
Violations and penalties.
Yeah, my question is, so we're saying they deleted completely, the person see violation should report, now this is totally deleted. So my question is, so if any person notes violation, no complaint will be accepted?
No, that's in here in a separate
Right,
thing.
what they're saying is they don't need to give you the directions on how to file a complaint.
Okay.
This is saying if a violation of this chapter occurs, the code enforcement officer may bring action in court. Not,
Okay.
not how to file it.
Okay, so if meaning can come from anybody else,
Yeah,
okay.
this is exactly, once it's in there, this is what our super code enforcement officer told me, Dr. Human has to go do,
Or either.
or either.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on, I thought, from a grammatical point of view, they said he or she. It's the only place I've ever seen he or she.
For
So I
where?
see, in the one that was,
In C.
Is this fine, really? $350?
Can we make it more?
Can we make it
That's
35,000?
Exactly, that was my,
Yeah.
that's
That's
what I,
what I'm
first thing I said is ridiculous.
Can we make a note to increase the fees?
Yeah.
This is not 1999 anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, that whole, the increase them, double the fees within 5 years. Yeah, that's.
Very lax. Very lax, exactly.
So
We'll be getting out of here by the way.
I don't see it.
Okay.
So what do we?
Letter D.
Letter D, they should revisit,
Fee schedule.
we just printed a 9.1% inflation print last month. And we're at 350. They
Costs
should,
you more to make a penny than a penny's worth.
exactly.
So the only thing in this is that each week is a separate violation, so it's $350 per week.
Okay, so that's nothing. That's absolutely nothing for these violations. The DEC, if you,
$25,000.
$25,000 a week, if you do not get a permit and you do something on the banks of the stream, that's what this is.
What was $250, $250 last time we discussed, we said,
Just
I have
revisit.
no
the
idea.
fees, yeah.
Just revisit
So
the
what do we
meetings.
want to bump it up?
Let them,
Just let them
let them
figure it
talk
out.
about it.
These are grossly insufficient.
Revisit fee schedule increase? question
Yeah.
mark?
Increase the fee
No,
schedule
increase the fee schedule, no
Increase,
question mark.
period.
Period.
to ensure compliance.
Exactly.
All right. Anything else on
I
this?
mean, you
one?
look at this stuff, you look at, right now, we have a fence that is 6 feet high. We don't have fences that are allowed in front of buildings 6 feet high. We have a 4 foot high fence wall. Pine Ridge has 6 foot high fences all over it. And if you go and I write something and say, we have just approved 6 foot high fences when it's 4 in front of Pine Grove, Pine Ridge, whatever the heck it is now. And you know that, and you say it's $350 a week, they'll pay that $350 a week until we're all dead.
I think the reason why that fence is that height by the way is it's the outside.
They can say
Nope,
what?
it is clear in
Is it
our
not?
code
Okay.
that the front is on.
Right.
the thoroughfare.
Okay. I
They
can give
might
you
be-
some background on that later.
Doesn't matter.
So,
They shouldn't be allowed to
So
break the
special
law.
Moving on, next
Special use
one.
and site plan review.
What's that, Kay?
Yep.
I have.
which paragraph? Locate, okay, so.
Okay, yeah.
I think we can talk about this.
I actually think this is very good to, like, to reread, review it when we have someone come in. You're like, it is very clear what you need to do. Why don't
Why don't
people
they do
come
it?
in with it?
Agreed.
Exactly. Why don't you say read 140 -45?
Yeah.
Pretty much what you need to do.
I don't know that advice is the word I'd like to use in that.
Where,
In what
So
letter?
in 140, 41, 140, 45 1 sketch plan A, where it says, submit a sketch plan as a minimum prerequisite for special use / site plan review
Oh,
and advice. I don't.
Well, we
advice is
do
not-
give advice.
We are a
Is
review
that-
board.
Preliminary.
Yeah, but
Like pre-application.
CPO is doing it.
what word would you, are you thinking?
You know, I'm just thinking that advice is something that can come back and bite us. That's all. That's
What
all.
about direction?
Direction, I like direction. I like
Yeah, I like
direction.
that
Yeah.
better, actually.
Because we do more direction
Review and
than advice.
direction.
I just think it should be eliminated altogether. I think it's for special use review by the planning board. We don't need any
Well, in
advice.
this
with
part,
that.
well, in
Yeah,
this
yeah.
part, you're not at special use review yet.
Right.
This is to get to it, so we have to say direction, because this little part here is
Pre-application.
pre-special
Yeah.
use review. We could give them direction saying, you know what, you're never gonna get this passed if you special use
We've done that.
is,
Yeah,
right?
that's happened.
So direction, this is not just special review, because this could be where they never make it to special.
I agree. I think direction is more important. Just
So I put something in there.
I like direction better than advice.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Okay. Anything else on A?
you have that
Level
sheet.
D.
B,
D.
B, yeah.
You did it with that.
10% of what? Could be existing main or accessory structure?
I saw that too.
Yeah,
What is
I
the
thought
difference
that-
between?
10% of floor area.
Doesn't say it.
It says it in the remainder of the sentence. It says no greater than 10% or maximum of 200 feet of the floor area. So 10% refers to
That's it.
floor area.
Yeah.
That's
It
not-
should say of the floor area, not of,
Yeah, you could say of the.
Okay, then what's
of the proposed.
and they're also saying square feet.
floor area.
Oh, where it
Accessory
says
use of
and it's
structure.
crossed out. That should be done.
The question is, what's the difference between floor area and a structure? 20 square feet of structure, why they?
Once again, or floor area or accessory uses,
Remember, this is a sketch plan. It could be any,
it could be for
proposal,
anything.
right?
A sketch plan proposal for the
Could be for
special
a
use, so,
winery.
right. So let's say someone comes in and they want to do at 10% onto the shed. And Jerry would say, our code enforcement officer / building inspector could say, you don't have to come to the planning board, all you're doing is adding 10% to your shed. For your special use or whatever, that I'm gonna approve it, it's so small, it's not gonna have parking issues or lighting issues.
But if it's more than 200 square feet, it's gotta come.
No matter what though, but if that 10% is 230 feet, it's gotta come to the.
So what
No,
keeps
no,
you
no, I
from
understand.
adding it
I understand.
Hello.
iteratively?
6 different times.
Nothing.
Because it says such sketch plan will
One time.
involve one-time addition,
One time.
which is the first time.
So it says right there, one time.
You're overthinking.
Yeah.
What I was asking
with that.
essentially, that's area obstructions, right?
No, you're right.
You
though.
could put in.
Floor area, area
Put
obstruction.
in a.
No, because floor area could be, or your
Yeah.
winery, I want to extend the fence on my winery. Of where I'm growing grapes,
A1.
right, that would be floor area.
And
Yes.
I don't understand your point.
He's saying the floor area and square feet.
No, what I'm saying, floor area or structure, you consider
Okay.
it 20 square feet of floor area or structure, it's floor area or structure.
Floor area, it should be clearly defined, once again, in our definitions, is different than a structure. So it's a floor area is floor area in building code, doesn't count things like bathrooms or closets,
Storage.
and storage and
Ah,
stuff like that. So the structure
So
could be,
floor area is gonna leave in there.
It's the
Exactly.
sum of the gross horizontal areas of the several floors of a building or buildings on a lot measured from the exterior faces of the exterior wall or from the center line of a party wall separating two buildings, excluding cellar and basement areas used only for storage
Okay, got
or
it.
for the operation and maintenance of the building.
so, exactly.
Remember.
Okay.
Is that right? Patrick?
Moving on.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Oh.
Another one, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Application can be made on form provided by the planning board.
Where are you?
We're saying B.
Still on B?
Yeah. No, I'm sorry.
We're not on page.
140, 46.
We're on the next page.
Okay,
Section-
140, 46, I do have one there on the end. Where it's the parenthesis, may be obtained free of charge online from several sources was an alternative to, when it was spelled out here, because it reads sort of funny, it was sort of in either aerial photographs obtained on extended parcel view or New York State DEC National Resource Map or Google and for others. You either list them, or the other thought was to just say, may be obtained free of charge online from several sources. So this was, and we didn't know
don't
what,
get yet,
we didn't know
but-
what to do,
Yeah.
so.
But that's, we shouldn't be telling them that it's free service. They need to do the research. That should just be.
Right,
stricken.
exactly.
Okay, well, it wasn't that to be struck, it was like, do you want to say this instead? So get rid of the
I
one,
think just get rid of the.
say,
parentheses
we don't
altogether.
like the may, get rid of that.
No more mays. Mays.
So just to back you up on 140, 46, second to the last sentence where it says, permit application until formal application has been made by forms provided by the board. Should that say planning board?
And there's a
Does-
planning
does-
board in there.
Oh,
Are you looking at the red one?
must be looking at the wrong one. Keep going.
Yep, planning board was
Sorry.
put in there, yep.
Yep, all right.
So we're gonna get rid of the parentheses. You got it.
Oh, yeah, get rid of the prints.
Yeah.
I
Two is
do.
good.
I do have-
Provide.
Yes, we do.
For what? Provide
We do.
by the planning board.
Wow.
Well, no, the planning board makes them, don't get so minutia.
Okay.
She isn't
I
allowed to
just-
make them herself.
I just facilitate.
So
You're
we-
beginning to sound like
The
Bruce.
reason, right, exactly, the reason,
For good reason.
for, you know.
Good comment. It's good comment, Patrick.
That's true,
Are you gonna write them out and hand them out? I don't think.
no, we do create them, like
We
the
create
application
the
track.
form.
You guys
create
have
them.
to
Yes.
vote on any like
It has to be
changes.
approved.
And it'll be
or-
approved by us. What it's
Okay.
trying to say is that, is that.
I just hand them out.
Okay.
Disbursement.
Or we give new powers to the planning board secretary and she
Yeah.
does everything for us and it'll be fantastic.
Provided by, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Provided by doesn't mean when needed,
What would you like to say then? Give me the
But
word.
provided an application.
Is that we're creating the application. Nicole provides the application.
Okay, I think you're really splitting hairs here, but what would you like me to say then?
So on forms created by the planning board? Is that what you're looking for?
Authorized.
Authorized?
Authorized. Thank you.
That's
There we go. We'll give the word then.
Approved by. the planning board?
No, don't use approved, because then they'll.
Forcibly shoved down your gullet by the planning board.
Let's say authorized.
We just
Authorized.
provide you with all the
Authorized for use.
information. You never read it.
You never read it or do it
Authorized.
anyway, so exactly. You never read it or do it anyway, so.
I have a question on C. It says,
Take it to eight.
Hang
Hang on, he's got.
Oh, sorry.
The site plan that shall include, because it kind of has been main form provided with planning board with detailed sketch plan providing full information has been submitted. A, the site plan that shall include, because it says site plan shall include. It's logically doesn't follow previous sentence. All information has been submitted. And it's following by the list. So A, the site plan that shall include.
You just wanted that in there?
Yeah.
I don't really for that.
No.
I don't think we really need to wordsmith as much, guys, in all honesty.
This is
We,
previously existing code.
right, right, we need to give the big ideas like they missed, like the next one that's coming up,
Okay.
we change our fences to be 6 feet high. We need to say, I think it's a horrible idea.
Okay, I can ask
That's
question about
at the
area,
end.
area for the minimum 50 centimeter resolution. What does it mean?
That's the resolution
The
of the image. I don't
Yeah,
know.
but how, what,
Well, that's like if you go to like one of the
Sigma high.
when you
NSA
create it,
spy
it
satellites,
shows
they have resolution down 10 millimeters, whereas if you go into
Okay,
Google
so
Earth,
it's
you got
showing-
resolution down to
all right.
10 meters.
Subject which are 50 centimeters. If it's less, it will not show.
It won't show you detail.
Okay. All right.
And the surveyor type people that know this stuff, like you guys like knowing that, because they want to know, like, they can always say,
Yeah.
so what level of top up? You know, I could do top of like, here's the earth.
Yeah, I noticed on my personal.
We have in the site plan. That says the 2 feet.
Right.
Yeah. So just, I can jump all the way down to T.
That'd be great.
Where it says.
What-
Thank you. I have your vote.
Absolutely.
A written description of the project, including all of the activities proposed on the site. My only question is.
Where
should
are
we-
you?
Where's T? There's no
I'm on
T.
letter M.
I'm on M, after
I
M,
have a T on mine.
Yeah, you're in the wrong letter.
you're the wrong code.
This is, a site plan shall include. I'm on 14046. 14046.
It only goes
Go
to
to
M.
M, I'm gonna go to M.
Okay, mine goes,
You must have added a lot.
mine has a
What?
secret environmental assessment. form.
Whoa,
But-
that's,
but-
whoa,
but-
that's,
Was that from the stuff that Nicole? wrote
Are you
up?
on natural,
So when she loaded,
Special use.
when
and
she
site
loaded
plan
it up,
review
Bruce, there was one, the old one, and then there was.
Okay, I must
a
have
red
the old
one.
one. All right, well.
Dang.
There was like 2.
Well, that'll make it easier if you only go to M and I'm going all the way up
so,
to.
because this has the secret, C is a completed secret environmental assessment form.
What I do is just upload.
I'm going all the way to like
That they,
X, Z. I have Z on mine.
What we
So
got-
my only comment was, okay, so if you guys are done with that, was the project includes a written description of the project, including all of the activities proposed on the site, number of employees relevant, and all that. I just wondered, what about the existing and continuing activities on the site?
But I'm not sure what section.
What part of it?
Yeah, I don't know what section I'm on either, clearly. So I think
Well, we can go back to what they sent us. And which
Mine-
one did you click on?
mine ends at, there's one that said 13 and that's N. And then I have B, which is 0, O, C, which is P, D, which is 0.
how about what, attachment?
LLK Article 7, Special Use and Site Plan Review Procedures, red line, hearing 8/25/22.
That's the one. There's two, yeah.
So I must have grabbed the wrong one. I grabbed the wrong,
There's a.
I grabbed the Word doc.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I grabbed the Word document
Yeah,
also so I could write it, so.
Yeah, that's what so I have,
why
okay.
is the PDF?
And then I start with 140/47.
That's the PDF.
This is the PDF, yeah.
Okay,
That's what I'm looking.
keep going. And they're not significant people. What are we at? What else?
We're going to waivers,
I have a,
140-47.
What do you have?
Nothing.
Okay, moving on. How about 48 doesn't look like it's there anymore. 48, 49, 50, so we're up to 50. Referrals.
Like, there's nothing to change in those. so
Yep,
that's-
50, 51, 52,
I
go
have-
ahead.
I have a comment. And it says special.
What
use
letter?
B.
Go ahead, 52B.
Should it say special use permit? Special use is kind of.
I agree.
Yes,
You're
it's
right.
good. Yep, the
Jargon.
site plan
Special
and
use
special use permit.
That's the
Yep.
correct title.
Do you have a J in there? No.
Okay, you are really starting to scare me because clearly someone's from another planet and
140/55.
Okay,
channeling, no.
So black.
there's an
Yeah.
F.
F, yeah.
You must have the original version.
What did Jay say?
J said,
J, what part?
whether the use will have a positive or negative effect on the environment, job, creation, the economy,
No,
housing.
you're in a totally different.
What-
town.
What part of?
Yeah, you're in Rochester, you're in the Worsley.
There you go. All right, I'm done with that one.
Wait, is there anything
No,
else?
but I
Lorraine?
wonder, if are we all, are the rest of us in the wrong one?
Are we all
No,
being
because
redundant?
I just went through these two, and they don't, there's no like T in either of these, or in any
Right.
of these.
So what is our, like,
Okay, we're going to M.
Right? Let's move.
Yeah.
We're trying to
L.
win the under over. huh?
L, sorry. Oh, I've already lost the under.
L, sand and gravel.
Oh, yeah, natural resource.
I have a question.
I have a question.
What part of it?
I'm in C in the first one, are you?
Yes, 140.8 C.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, with the PL.
Me too. What the hell is PL ten?
Probably it's done in the pipeline.
Right, so they come up with this PL ten zoning, and I don't know what that is.
The PL 10 is protected land. That's
10 acre.
10 acre, exactly. And
So is it the same thing as a, A10?
Yeah. Yes.
And I said that you added a to that, but you shouldn't be.
Why not AR10?
I know you went AR, but don't worry about the
Oh,
AR.
no, hang on, let's talk about this. We have H, we have B, we have R, we have AR. Now we're adding A and PL. I mean, let's get a little some continuity here.
Okay, but that we are already gonna present that as a separate thing. I thought we were gonna say that we thought that the A10 should be AR10.
Or get rid of the R in AR3, make it A3. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I know what A10 is, if they're saying there's no residential building, in it. Like in AR3, you can build residential in a residential area. But
So.
we have too many naming. conventions.
Okay. So I'm just gonna read it to you. Because we haven't,
Yeah, go ahead.
okay, guys, they should have sort of started with this first, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
exactly.
That's, and just get with it, they just get, PL10 is Protected Land District. This district is intended to protect the town's critical, high-value natural resources, watershed, and large open areas of the town as specified in the comprehensive plan, while allowing for both very low-density residential and accessory uses. So the only principal permitted uses, I can give everybody copies of this, is agricultural retail sales, agriculture, bed and breakfast, farm operations, home occupations, hunting and fishing clubs, one-family dwellings, public parks and playgrounds, sawmills, two-family dwellings, and we have to put wireless telecommunications. But
Less than 10 acres?
this is
Minimum.
minimum of 10 acres.
Each of those.
Can you give me an
properties,
example of
each-
where a
each
PL
of- Yeah,
Yeah.
where is
We,
that?
okay,
They have,
we have no PL10.
Right.
They're gonna make a new PL10 area.
So is NR going away?
What?
NR still exists.
NR and PL should be the same.
No, because NR is natural resources and you can do different things in that. You can do mining and stuff. NR was created,
I know it was
So
created.
can you,
but
it was created for mining.
Agreed.
Maren, can you give example?
This is
in a
not
town
mine.
where?
So you can't mine in
where
PL
there's
area?
it could be a-
Where PL is proposed right now, I can bring the map in for us next time when we do this, to show where it's
That would
proposed.
be nice.
Um,
Can you give me an
whole
example where a
area.
PL property?
neat.
Your PL then?
If this goes into existence, we abut.
So all state land, large forested protected tracts of land where there's going to be, Rick, what do we call that? We pull it on the parcel viewer, that's all changes the color.
Where it's protected
Core
habitat.
Core habitat, right? So would that
Could-
be,
It could be some. It could also be something like the blind, the Pocketbook blind.
Right.
That whole area
Yep.
could be a PL10.
So that became a PL10. Like,
I mean,
well,
it
I
could be, I
became-
don't know what it is.
sure.
That was one because you really, so that the criteria were, it's stuff that is sort of coming off of either Mohunk or Minnewaska or Catskill or steep. It's like that property the guy wanted you to help with.
Yeah.
It's unbuildable practically because of the steepness. And so people go by them, they can do something, they find I can't do anything, so. And it could have the threatened species, et cetera, largely because it's unbuildable and abutting
I'd like to see
existing
that
state
now.
land. Some of the stuff, the bulk of it is state land already. So we actually have R5 zoning for Catskill State Park that we don't even really own. So it was to say, well, why do we have R5 or whatever when it's owned by the state of New York?
So is PL10 the same as A10?
No, A10
Is agriculture.
is agricultural district. This
Okay.
district is intended to protect the town's critical high-value agricultural land as specified in the comprehensive plan, while allowing for agricultural-related residential uses. The district is further intended to complement the New York State Agricultural District Program and maintain full rights to farm within these areas. You can do more stuff in these because it is flatter land, et cetera, than,
Okay.
I just think our naming conventions are a little.
okay, well, we'll do that separate though.
Well,
Yeah,
we're
I
gonna-
agree.
Clean up the.
Like zone 1 should be whatever, zone 2, zone 3.
all right,
And they run
let's
out of
move
that.
along here.
Alpha
So we're on 14028C, right?
So that was the.
So that was my question. So right now I understand.
So I personally think we should add A10 into this the
I
sand
agree.
mining thing, no, on A10?
Yeah.
You shouldn't, so can you stick
A10
that
should
in
be-
too?
It's in the list.
Yeah.
To A10, Delta, all one, so and so forth. Yeah.
My only comment on this is minimum of biannually has 2 meetings. It can be twice a year,
Oh,
once every
yeah.
other year.
That's a deadly one.
So write what you want. Do you want it twice a year? Or do you want it once every other year?
Where are you? I don't, where is
C1, the last sentence,
Of L?
minimum of biannually. And the following provision, biannually. has
So
2
we should
meetings.
just write in there,
It just says annual on.
Yours says, mine says
oh
biannual.
my God.
Mine says biannually too.
There
It
you
says
go.
annual. Mine says annual.
No, you're in the wrong section. We're gonna go on C last sentence, not into number one.
Not.
Oh, I see.
Bottom of the paragraph.
In the parentheses,
Minimum of
at the end
five.
of C.
Gotcha.
Right.
It's really hard to do when everybody's got different.
But I think the reason that
Why
is.
it's a challenge. That's why I'm hard. Who's the murderer? Wink at me.
That's right.
I think the reason that they have it that way is biannually because I think the MSHA code, which is the mining law, requires that there's a local inspection done biannually.
Is biannually twice a year or once every other year?
Biannually, twice a year.
I don't think that's the intent.
So biannually also means once every
Once every
other
other year.
5 weeks.
So
think
let's
that's
put, exactly, let's put a parenthesis here, spell out biannually.
What is the intent?
I mean, what is the
Twice a
intent?
year,
Okay.
or is it once every?
Okay.
Because you're right, you probably have,
Or is that something they want to leave vague?
no, I think that, I
It
think
just
that,
shows up.
I think that one is, has to go with the mining law.
Whatever MSHA's law is.
Right.
Okay.
We haven't got very far.
No, but what number are we on? What's my, M?
L, I'm sorry, yeah.
140,
Yeah.
that's 28 feet.
140, So just one other thing on the last piece of this, and this is something I don't know about zoning. I have this as number 7.
Go ahead.
The subject activity shall not.
No,
create
that's
any
number 6.
I've got a 7.
I have a
The
7.
proposed activity shall be.
He was reading number 6.
Well, on my page is number 7. Let
All
me
right.
read this statement anyway. The subject activity shall not create any conditions which are injurious or hazardous to the public. The planning board may also reasonably restrict the hours of operation to address noise and related issues and subject to this annual review. And my question is, can we also restrict traffic patterns? So for example, if they're going through some minor gravel pit, we don't want them traveling next to the school, the trucks traveling next to the school, or traveling next to a high residential area, beating up a road that's, a dirt road.
How would we enforce that?
We just say you have to enter and exit using these roads.
So like, for instance, let's use our current mining locations on Rochester Center.
Right.
They come either Queens Highway
Or Sampson.
or Sampsonville.
And let's say that you say they're closer to Sampsonville, right? Is it, well,
Sure.
Yeah, they.
Well, one is closer to Sampsonville, one's closer to that one.
right, so if you're gonna use this one, you have to come up Sampsonville, use this one, you have to come up Queens Highway, so you're not driving the length of the.
I think it would be hard to regulate something.
Well, that's what the constable does, but,
Right.
And that's, I think it would be really hard
yeah,
to.
I'm just asking.
No, you're right.
I don't know, that's a
But-
good question, I
But
have
for
no idea
construction
if,
as well, like, let's expand it.
The road less traveled.
Construction.
I mean, I guess the argument would say, right, is that I could come in City Hall and go crossroad and go left or right.
Yeah,
why don't we put it in, because it reasonably restrict the hours of operation,
Which we
and,
do.
and also, that would mean we reasonably restrict. So just add in hours of operation,
The
comma,
traffic pattern.
traffic patterns, or traffic flow, just throw it in like that, because you're right.
Right, the people in the middle of Rochester Center should not be affected by traffic.
Right, this is coming in.
They should either,
Right.
whatever way they're, whatever one they're going to.
Closest to the big
Right,
so
road,
everybody
you
doesn't
know.
hear the jig.
Oh, and you do hear them.
All right.
Yeah, all I have with that is,
Right,
all right, so.
okay.
Especially.
Okay, we have
the-
nothing else there?
the- all you-
There's nothing else on L, right?
No.
I'm done with that.
Okay, moving on, okay.
Emma.
All right,
Oh.
whatever you say.
You're getting tired, you're going, you can't do your
It's
alphabet anymore.
9:30, past the quota here. That cricket's really got a lot of.
So I had something on.
Oh, I have something on.
Yeah, I have something on B to add. He's got to do his super secret, spy one, pull it up. What? I'm on double BC XYZ.
Why is C the wrong color?
I don't
It's
know.
a different color on mine too.
Hey.
Yay!
Somebody changed the font color.
Okay.
So does anybody have anything?
I have, no, on B I do.
B.
You should add in, you can just take this off the thing I sent you if you want. Shall comply with the applicable sections of the New York State Uniform Fire Protection Building Code as amended.
Yeah.
That should be added in there.
Emma, local, Emma.
Yes.
I'm just gonna put, take wording from our.
Yep.
Do it smart.
Can we,
That's our standard stuff that
Yeah.
you,
anybody have anything on C?
No,
Okay, D I have.
I do too.
Okay, you wanna go first?
I would like to understand why we picked these zones like H and I.
So-
Where,
well, I think I and NR should be thrown out of it.
Oh, I disagree. I think.
where R2 isn't included. Where H is more dense than R2, certainly, right? Because it's the hamlet, it's really right in town. R2 is less dense, but you can't do it.
Yes.
know,
it was
why
on-
isn't it-
was
why is-
on, this was from, this actually, the group that I was in, we didn't do, most of this was done previously.
Oh.
People hate it in the R2 and R1. It is too close. That means
Right.
they don't want it there because you're gonna be too close to the other thing and it's really noisy. And
So that's where I'm going. So what I'm saying is, why isn't there an acreage requirement versus a zone?
And on that same topic, I don't think that in A10, which we are classifying as
I agree.
agricultural land, there should not be any events in. But more importantly, NR for natural resources. If we are saying that that is a natural resource zoned area, we shouldn't have anything for profit in that area.
right,
But-
I said think
And
it
or more.
What's
The
that?
way we have and or defined
Yep.
now
exists already.
is mine.
Correct.
The one you're referring to is the
It's
new
PL.
one. Is
No,
the
no, no,
PL.
hang on. It says commercial event facilities shall be permitted in, and NR is there.
Yeah, but that exists already. Like, you know what our areas are?
That's not
Yeah,
really.
that's Rochester Center, Fisher Road, there's some on Crum Road.
So it was made for mining. Why would you want a special event in the middle of a sand mine? I mean, I guess you have a great rate.
Depends on your
Why
event.
not?
If you have a field.
Why
No, no,
not?
we're missing it. It's the other way around.
In
It
a
says-
mine?
Oh, you're saying shall be permitted, don't. permit it.
Correct.
Because
Yes,
it's
okay,
mine.
we're both the same thing. Exactly. I think NR should be out.
But you say I and NR. I don't agree on I. I is industrial. You can do anything you want there. A10 should be taken out and NR should be.
I agree. I could go, I think I did too far, because you could have a rave and a.
Right,
warehouse.
exactly. And I agree with Bruce. If you're gonna have R1 and R2, then the H district should come out because it's even smaller where there's 3rd-acre lots rather than half acre.
So.
But Hamlet could have the property you have there.
I think the best of it, because they want
Then
Once
they
you
just
develop
get-
the
They
Hamlet,
want to develop the business in the hamlet.
And that might be, so, and that's
that's
reasonable.
why it's there.
The other thing is with, I don't think you can limit some of this in agriculture. Because the argument the farmers will make
Is what?
is that this helps me generate revenue to sustain the farm business.
So then
But
if it's,
it goes under agricultural umbrella.
No,
No.
remember Arrowwood?
Yeah.
That's not agricultural. They had to get a special use permit and everything to do their stuff. They could still do, ag and markets will let you do things to promote just your agriculture. So you can go around and have your,
For example,
Mhm.
if their restaurant is not permitted in that free, they really do to animal.
That's right.
so then in my situation, I think that A10 for natural resources should not be used for commercial events for profit. If you want to make it a non-for-profit, no problem. in my opinion. I'm sure Patrick, if he wants to have a event at his place, non-for-profit, I'm sure he. would
No,
do it.
but then it doesn't matter because that already is allowed under ag and market. You can do that 'cause it's just promoting with these guys.
Yeah, but what if Patrick wants to have a wedding?
But it's a
Then-
non, you're allowed to
then
have.
You're allowed, everybody, is.
Everybody.
Everybody can have a wedding.
Yeah, I could have a wedding on that.
Hang on, it says here, let's go back to letter C. Where such facilities are permitted either by right or permit, commercial on-site events such as conferences,
Commercial.
banquets, festivals, or weddings.
Commercial is your key word there, commercial. It's a commercial on-site event. That means you're charging money.
So, in my opinion, in an A10 district, you should not be able to charge money.
And, they're never, you're right, they're never, we can say it, but they're never gonna apply because exactly what Bruce said. This
Are
is
we gonna
what
have a
this is.
wedding in a gravel
You're
pit?
gonna be overridden by the state. The state is saying you can do this. The state ag and markets is saying, we can't, home rule won't apply in this situation.
No, it's not as clear as that.
Ag and Markets gives you their recommendation. I think we have the final.
Yeah,
So I think, I don't know that it's,
we went through this
Finalized, but
ad
it's-
nauseum with Arrowwood.
Yep.
Ag and markets, if you wanna do a wedding, they're gonna say, then, you know what, you need to go to your zoning, or you need to go to your home rule, okay? But if you want to do something that is related to ag and market type stuff, then you have a very big, because that's the whole bouncy house is the precedent-setting law that they did that. So you can have a bouncy house, because the bouncy house, is people are coming down the farm doing
But
farm
that's fine.
things,
I think that's
et
fine.
cetera, but that you're charging, and that goes under ag and markets. The zoning, we can't zone out the bouncy house, but we could zone out doing a wedding, because wedding has nothing to do with promoting sort of it's.
Totally agree.
Really,
You're not gonna be promoting a rock quarry.
look at E as the exemption under E. So exemptions are such uses associated with agricultural, tourism enterprises, hotels, motels, nonprofit clubs, places of worship, public buildings, parks, taverns, and others shall be exempt from the requirement.
okay, so I personally, we have to decide here, I say we take NR out,
Agreed.
We're fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
all right? And we could suggest A10, because I sort of lean in my heart to what you're saying, Mark.
If
But
we're
I
gonna
know
classify
Aaron,
it-
I know Aaron will.
Well, hang on, then if they're gonna, if Aaron thinks it that way, then they should change A10 to AR10. And now we don't have that problem.
You still the same thing, but it doesn't matter what you call it AR or not, it's the principal permitted uses, you could call it horse poo-poo.
No, but an
As-
A10 district and I'm sorry, let me back up. An A-typed district and an AR-type district is two different,
No, it isn't.
well, it should
In
be.
an A district, everywhere, a one-family dwelling, a two-family dwelling are allowed. So AR, right there, one-family dwelling, you get 1 per 10 acres in this. So whether the R is in there or not, I do not think under zoning law, you can say, we have a place, we can't have a residential dwelling.
Agreed.
So you can put the R there if you want, but this is what matters, the principal permitted uses. So it could be AR, it doesn't change anything, it's what you take out here. So if you take, these are all farmaceous
Sure,
kind of things.
Sure.
So it doesn't really matter. If you have AR or A not, unless you had, in other states, they do that and have a true, they have like 840.
Agriculture district.
Right.
There's no
But
housing.
that's never gonna happen in New York State.
So
You're
then-
right, you're way ahead of I know Kentucky has pure 40-acre agriculture. You know what you can do there? For horses. That's it.
Acres in a row.
So
Same
then let's
thing,
just
you
take
get,
out the natural resources up there.
let's take an extra resource because I think they'll never listen to us.
All right,
Okay, so good. The
So-
comment that I feel like
so
20 minutes
what are we,
ago
on?
was the only-
What letter are we on now?
Well, on E, I
Yeah.
just said, I hate the way this reads and it's caused problems with the planning board, but I don't really know how to better say it. Because this is sort of, if it says, if you have a restaurant, it's just stipulating you can host weddings at your restaurant.
That's right.
But we had a problem, the mill hook, the
Oh,
stone, whatever, okay. They went through this whole special use, whatever, they were technically a resort. They probably shouldn't,
Over by
on,
Zoran.
it's by Zoran's. Because this doesn't, if they were saying they're gonna be a resort, then a resort, this is all regular things you do in a
Correct.
resort, so you never need a special use permit. But it wasn't a resort yet, because they were making it into a resort,
resort is a higher tax bracket.
So then they want the special use. They should have- And I don't know the solution here, but this doesn't read clearly in a case where you buy an old farm, et cetera, like that, and you're gonna turn it into a resort. And they are,
So
Isn't that the assessor?
why don't we make, instead of saying it's exempt, if we did something where it requires that permit and it's good for a certain amount of time, and then it expires, and then they have to redo.
Or rezone. Right, because you could buy a Bush's farm as a farm today, but tomorrow it's a yoga party. And
Exactly.
you're gonna, when are you gonna change it to a yoga party or a resort or a, what do they call it, retreat?
So upon review of a zoning permit application, I'm sorry, you're on E, right?
yeah,
For the determined regular occurrence. So rather than say exemptions, just say that the code enforcement officer is authorized to issue that special use permit for a 2-year period, a 3-year, whatever, pick a number,
1 year.
and then subject to review.
if it is determined by them that is a regularly occurring and usually associated with use, then they can just issue a 1-year permit.
Right.
Does it say so at the end here, the code enforcement officer is empowered by the town board to determine if the requirements have been satisfied? And
Right.
may determine site plan review and approval by the planning board. to be
Exactly.
required.
And that's why the Mill Hook one, he said, no, it's not there yet. You need a special use permit.
Where does it talk about when you are told that you need a special use permit and then you don't get one? Hey,
That's
you
it.
need a special use permit. Okay, all right, I'll get one. And you never do.
Oh, they
Well,
just
then
have to
you're
take
in
a
violation.
We
structure
have that problem
violation.
right now. What are we, what is the?
Jerry's supposed to be
He's supposed to,
taking him to court,
right, it's supposed to issue citation, $350 a week.
either a
Right.
shutdown
Or
or
shut down.
or a court.
We need a really, really mean code enforcement officer. If you're just ignoring it.
Because we have one right now. We have that problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, okay,
Moving on.
all right, we can't solve that.
So, I don't know,
And he could get, he just doesn't want to go through all the work.
right,
Very easily.
I'm putting it together.
On the wetland.
Okay, moving on.
So-
Sorry.
I mean, you guys see the point here of, it says it, but it is a really awkward,
Right, yeah.
but I don't know how to fix it.
So, okay, let's look at it this, what is the objective of this thing? What do you want as the objective?
The objective, as it is written
Give
here,
me like the 3 bullet points of what your objective, not as it's
Is-
written, what is the objective that you want under exemptions?
that if you own a restaurant, you can have a wedding at a restaurant because that's a regular use of something. You have a resort and you want to have special events that, let's say the resort that didn't, like you said, did the yoga resort where they don't do anything.
So certain
Making sure you-
business types would be exempt.
Right.
Based on the nature of their business, so that's one. And we could enumerate what those businesses are,
Which is
right?
what they tried to do here.
Right.
They tried, yeah.
So certain businesses should be exempt. That's really all you're saying. And that the ability to say that they're exempt is in the code enforcement officer's purview, right?
Yep.
All right. Do we want an expiry on that approval that he gives?
I think a year is more than adequate.
Yeah, I think it would be really good if we did something like that at
Okay.
the time limit.
So,
And-
right, so we'll say, reading this, we think should be rewritten to achieve the following objectives. Certain businesses are exempt. The code enforcement officer makes the determination that they're exempt and that he only issues that special use permit for a period of 1 year. It has to be renewed and renewed.
I think that's excellent, because then you have the people,
You get it in the Zoom.
then you have the people that keep slipping it in and slipping it in and slipping.
Right.
And then they get the mission creep. They start out with,
Exactly.
and you don't get mission creep that way, because you go back in a year like, you know what, you really need a special use permit now because you gotten bigger.
So. it would-
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, all right, I have one on, hopefully you guys have an H in yours.
The facility,
Facility,
Facility operator shall be required to notify the code enforcement officer of any event scheduled in a minimum of 3 business days prior to the event, either by email or written letter.
no,
Right, it's just ridiculous. Because
He's never gonna get.
it should be 3 months in advance, based on our review and things. So I don't know if we can tie that in, now that we've kind of rewritten E, it almost can tie back into that, right? It says,
Well, 3 months is way too much. I mean,
Yeah, I
if
know.
You're running a wedding venue, you don't have a thing.
We're not saying.
But you might not,
Say a month.
I think 30 days is.
yeah,
You think it's reasonable?
Minimum, I do.
Month, a month?
I
He's
think
gotta
so.
go through all of his. You have to, I mean, he's already got book schedule, then he's gonna have to go through and review all.
but this
the
is the actual event once you're already approved. Then.
Correct.
This is,
well, it doesn't say that.
Well, but it's implied because
Yeah.
you're saying the number of events shall be under 12 per calendar year. We're already talking about in the event you are approved. I believe.
this is, yeah, exactly. This is,
And I still think 30 days.
And that's, which is fine. So
You
then
know
what it should say
That's
is
too much.
the number of events is fine. I don't think that has to change, but sort of an approved facility operator or
that should be
Okay.
approved, exactly.
But then how many days?
I still think it's 30. I think it's much more than 3. They can't review this.
Well, but hang on a
They
second.
don't, they're not reviewing all the stuff. All they're doing.
No,
is
they're getting
knowing
it back. This guy should have the documentation. He
No, no,
has-
no, no,
No, no,
no.
no,
This
no.
is already approved.
Already
You can
approved.
now use a commercial site at your location and you need to tell somebody X amount of days. ahead
The
of time.
facility operator shall supply documentation of compliance with the Ulster County Board of Health and other applicable health and safety regulations, right? So I'm saying is they're gonna supply that documentation. Either they're gonna say it's the same as last time, or they have to get it refreshed each time they come forward on that 3-day thing.
Depends if they need porta potties or.
Porta potties.
Business day and just submits it on
Yeah, I
a
think it's,
Thursday.
I think, yeah,
I think it's at least.
I'd say, I go for 2 weeks
Yeah.
because
14
I think
days.
14 days because you can get a porta potty and get the okay for a porta potty.
How about 10 business days?
Is business.
14 business.
No, that's
10
almost 3
business days.
weeks.
10
I think
business
10
days.
business
What do you
days.
want?
10 business.
10 business.
All
right, we're good.
Okay, moving on.
Can we just stop for a
Yeah.
minute, Jay, Mary? You're more familiar with this than I am, but 12 events per calendar year, we had a situation where,
Oh, that's G.
I'm going backwards, yeah, that, they could literally have an event every week.
As long as they weren't paying for it or it was personal party. If it was a fundraising.
non-commercial.
Yeah, if it was non-commercial, you could have them all the time, right?
Well, Arrowwood, for example, they can have it every week.
As long as they say, like, here's an example. Now that Roper Dozen is the treasurer of the Ronda Valley Growers.
Yep,
If they
we're having an
say,
event.
we're having we would like to have an event, call up Arrowwood and say, would you let us have an event? Or, yeah, come in for free.
It's the same thing as,
But they're making money.
They're making money off.
Not off the event itself.
but the event is not
The
being
event
charged.
should not be charged. And that is where Bruce is right. That is the ag and markets. Now, all what you're talking, the 12 events kind of thing, if you don't have any farm stuff involved here, it's gonna be way strict. I mean, they're so strict with the racetrack, they can barely sneeze.
Yeah, right.
So there's an example.
But they have hang on a second. They have a maximum amount of events they can have a year.
That's
for
it.
profit.
But this is
And
it
days
also,
in a
this is
row.
it. This is a maximum of 12 events per calendar year per for profit that someone could have.
Right, the racetrack doesn't come under this. The
Right, the racetrack was a bad,
That's
Hang
good.
on. So is there some way we can split this? To say, you can have all the parties you want that are Patrick parties, right?
Personal.
Person. Nobody's gonna, you're using your land with this. But if I want to use your land as a third party using it, you're not charging me, but I'm having my event on your land. That
Yeah, but this
counts
is
as
in
one.
the, under the
Even though you're
commercial.
not, even though you're not charging me, it's a third party sponsoring kind of thing, right? Because
you're adding in another category. You're adding in another category.
Because what I'm saying, you're saying, the Roundout Valley growers say, hey, can I use your facility and hope? Come on down, right? Because they know they're gonna sell more, right? Be stupid not. But they didn't schedule, they didn't do that event, somebody else sort of booked it, right?
And you're saying this is a leeway, it's not commercial.
Really,
This gets really
Yeah, I
complicated.
know,
Yeah.
it's a-
Because I have gone through this process with our place.
Yeah.
And might probably still have nightmares of events that we precipitated in this scenario. And the blending of a commercial and an agricultural facility is absolutely ridiculously complicated. Because the state has regulations for both of them. The regulations are different
and in conflict.
and in conflict.
and this isn't just talking about agricultural,
Yeah, right.
this is talking about anything. This is
Exactly.
if you have a golf, if it isn't, you have a golf club, or it could be part of the regular.
Yeah.
Whatever, you can do as many as you want.
For
Because
meetings.
we just said, a golf club would have a meeting hall. But if you're a small inn, but it isn't really regular, then you're gonna do limited, so that's in the Mill Hook, the perfect example of this. They're only gonna have 12 weddings. Or 12 parties. No, and it's gonna have as many as you want, that's a resort. They can have them,
Every
10
day.
every single day they can have it. Because that's the business of what they're doing. is being a resort.
But when they're out of that classification.
But when you're out of the classification as a resort and you're just an inn or a,
Bed and breakfast.
Well, there it is. So if you're out of the classification, you're limited to 12, whether they're commercial or not.
okay, and then.
I
we-
agree with that.
That's great. So now we need a place,
I
what are you gonna do with place of worship? That's one of the things we talked about. Place of worship, can do whatever they want. That's a class of restaurants. So
Wait,
you-
wait, wait. Places of worship can do what?
you can do as many
They're
as they
exempt
want.
from this?
Yep, right here. Exemptions. Regular
Well, the
occurring and
reason they're
usually
exempt is-
associated with such use.
But the reason they're exempt is because they're not for profit. This is all for profit.
No, it isn't. Public buildings, nonprofit clubs, hotels, motels are for profit. Agriculture, tourism, enterprises, resorts, restaurants, taverns, we have profit and not profit in here. This thing right here is such a hairball. We spent days on it. And it's still, and that's why we left it exactly how we have it. Because you need like a professional person that knows what to do with this.
So let's write,
You just
so there,
recommend
I'm
that?
sure there's other towns that drafted similar kind of things, because I know we had a big one, was it Olive that was having
Right.
a brouhaha about it a little while back, a couple of years ago. So let's
They stole that.
let's table this one. They're keeping their public hearings open, so we can say, we'll get back to you on this one after our meeting.
Okay, let's go to Ed then.
Exactly.
In
Because
September.
that one's like the key.
Right.
How do you keep people from slipping through and cheating, but not penalize too
Right.
much
Correct.
and make people
So-
still have a peaceful home to
so
live in and it's.
We'll table this one.
So we're not.
We'll go
going-
back, we'll do a little more research. We'll come in next month, we'll present the research, and see what we.
Just to confirm, we're not going to include the previously discussed comment regarding E,
Correct.
that I was gonna go
Yes.
back and get the exact wording. for.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
just gonna delete that.
So.
You're gonna
okay.
say too
Well,
hard.
You actually could leave that in there if we're tabling. which-
I agree, leave it for now.
You can
Yeah.
comment.
Okay,
We can
yeah,
always
that's
edit.
admitting it.
Right.
Right.
On this one, then.
We're just gonna, we're gonna,
The whole local.
we'll write a letter to say we're not ready.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, because when you get to M, I have a lot
Yeah,
about the sound levels and all that.
Eminem,
As an
yeah,
And
We discussed this. Nauseam.
And for that matter, the,
I have an easy one on J. You should have setback at the yard.
I have an issue, like, what about the sheds? You only have 2 sheds per piece of property that you own?
what are we on
You want?
accessory structures? Did you move on to
Yeah.
another?
Oh my God, he's on, I'm on.
we're still on,
We're
okay,
still
Still on,
are we done beating up?
Commercial with that.
Thought we were done with that, moving on.
yeah, but you are right, the bonfires and whatever,
Exactly.
So
We-
this is.
half
going
of us
to
wanted to
be
ban them. The other half, we're like,
Discussed at
You don't want
September
bonfire?
meeting.
Yes, we'll
no,
discuss it.
because you end up with
All right.
like.
Let's move on to accessory structure.
Area access.
I thought fireworks were like illegal to begin with.
You get it's a special use. Burn down the forest.
Burn for.
All right,
No, actually, there's
accessory.
a firework application in there.
Should we table this one as well, since it's gonna be a lengthy one? Well, we have a lot more to talk about at 7 o'clock. Should we come back to M and N?
Want to put it on the shelf till next?
Let's put both of these.
I think, yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
that's fine.
We have a lot, we still have more to talk about.
Okay, training. All right, training, there's Lula is, I'll read to you what I got from that from our town board liaison. A training opportunity this fall, and the town board is looking to send one planning board member to it, along with myself, at the Erin, and 2 other community members from our board and commissions. The training occurs over 3 Thursdays this fall. We're looking for planning board member who can commit to the full training schedules. We attach flyer details. Because we had this as an agenda. And we'll circulate it. Once the planning board comes in on person, please notify the town board. We can do a nomination for the training. We're allowed to nominate 4 people as a town, but we might not get all the spots for the training. But this is just the first step. So let me know if you're interested. I know I am keenly interested in this. I asked Mike about this in 2019, and they canceled it 2 years in a row because of COVID. So, just so you know, that's full disclosure.
I have probably 700 credits that I haven't even claimed.
Or it's like I'll pass on the floor.
Exactly. I haven't even claimed all of the, when I went to Saratoga for 2 days for planning board,
So
in New
give
York
everybody
City.
a chance to look at it.
So everybody else can.
Where
have
is
at
it? Rosendale?
No, I think it was
Yeah.
SUNY Purchase. Was that Rosendale? I think it was Rosendale. Was it SUNY Purchase, the one?
Oh, we held 9 a.m. to
Pace University.
at the town of Rosendale Recreation Center.
Oh, yeah, okay. There you go. 26, 6, and 20.
I'm out of country.
I'm in Florida.
I'm out of for that sometime.
He's just gonna leave.
Is there
I'm
anybody
going,
who's
I'm
out?
gonna go too.
You're out, for sure?
Well, I would personally say that it probably would be better spent somebody else going.
Let me
than-
check my calendar.
No, I checked my calendar. Oh, great.
I'm gonna take a pass on it. Thank you.
Wrong calendar.
So we're basically sending you, Bruce.
Patrick, sorry, you gotta go.
It's only one person or 2 people.
Hang on.
No.
Just Rosendale.
Pace University is a sponsor, that's why I thought it was SUNY Purchase. It's only 95 miles away. I know that because I used to work right down the street from it.
Chair, I can only attend one of the 3 days,
Well, then you're out.
so I'm out.
Good, we're narrowing it down.
Right. Now Bruce and Patrick.
And Bruce, Patrick,
You say
rock,
you're
paper,
South
scissors.
Carolina?
Oh, I said
Okay.
I have. 700
All right,
credits.
so that's the
Like,
training. No, I said I would like to go. We have to agree on who we want to nominate. for the board.
So I make a motion to nominate Bruce.
I'm not really good. I am absolutely horrible.
We
at
just did that. I made a motion to nominate Bruce. He seconded it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
There we go. Thank you
And
very much. I
is Bruce
appreciate it.
abstaining from that? vote?
I am abstaining, yes. Okay.
Bruce,
Action
in the event you're busy, I can go one of the days.
Stop in.
listen, my calendar is so wide open.
What happened?
You don't want my calendar.
I'm looking for things to, I gotta, you need your house painted? Let me know.
We
And
just
we're
fixed, we just fixed the mulcher. If you'd like to come over.
Painted
we
my
can.
house with all right, approval on the minutes from the July 20th workshop.
I will make a motion to approve the July 25th workshop minutes.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry, I know you don't approve them. Was that acceptable the way that I had listed? Because there were quite a few minutes that were voted upon. And I kind of broke it down and Dorian pointed out to me that I should have, I kept June separate. So I did the 2 May ones with their vote counts. the June one with their.
That was
Yeah,
great.
that was
Because
great.
there were like a couple people that abstained from this one.
Hopefully we
but
don't
not
have to
others.
go on,
Right.
That was.
hopefully we
okay.
won't get behind like that.
Right.
Right,
That's fine.
okay,
Yeah,
That's a good way to
Yeah,
do it.
because I wasn't out one.
right.
right.
If there's a difference in it. If
That was-
all
I
three
just
were
kind of like-
unanimous, you can list them.
But I broke
Yeah,
it
yeah,
down
that was
instead.
My favorite, the workshop meeting. Do we want a motion to not have it?
I make a motion not to have it work.
I second that motion.
All in Favor?
Sure.
Aye.
Okay,
Let me cancel it out.
all right. So we have a recommended resolution. Town of Rochester Planning Board, motions to enter executive session at 10 PM on the dot.
We need to,
Yeah. For the purpose of discussions regarding matters leading to the appointment, employment dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're gonna enter executive session